I'd like to gavel in our special scheduled meeting for 6 o'clock, the Board of Aldermen. If you'd all stand and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Harper.
Here.
Alderman Nguyen.
Here.
Alderman Robertson.
Here.
Alderman Kramer.
Present.
Alderman Tui.
Here.
Alderman Leahy.
Here.
Alderman Manister.
Here.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Here.
Thank you. If I could have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
For legal or personnel matter. Second?
Personnel, it says
Well, I'm sorry.
contract negotiation.
Contract negotiations, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I just wanted to note that I don't approve to going into
Well,
closed
do we have a
session.
motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay.
I don't approve to going into closed session. I believe that this contract doesn't have anything that's privileged in it that can't be discussed in public. And so I will not be voting to go into closed session.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Alderman Harper.
No.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes.
Alderman Robertson.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderwoman Manister.
No.
Alderwoman Saunders.
No.
Okay. We will meet upstairs. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. We're waiting for leave. We'll give 1 second.
We're missing one. All right.
Okay, thank you. We are in session. We had opened the meeting at 6 o'clock, and we are now back in regular session. And so we will move on to approval of the agenda for the regular Board of Aldermen meeting for February 3rd, 2014. Any changes to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda is submitted, Your Honor.
Okay, and second?
Second, Your Honor.
Thank you. Actually, before, can I ask for one addition? After bids, if we could have a, I guess, a B underneath there for a presentation with respect to the dispatch negotiations and contract. We could add that to the agenda.
So moved. I'll withdraw my first
Yeah,
motion.
if we could take the first and second back, please.
I'll withdraw the second.
Thank you.
Motion to amend the agenda of February 3rd to add 7B, update on dispatching service with the City of Brentwood and ECDC.
Thank you. And second?
Second, Your Honor.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Harper.
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yes.
Alderman Robertson.
Yes.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes.
Alderman Tui.
Yes.
Alderman Leahy.
Yes.
Alderwoman Manister.
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, if I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended, please.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next item, item 4, consideration approval of the minutes from the January 14th Special Board of Aldermen meeting. Any changes?
Motion to approve as submitted, Your Honor.
Second?
Second, Your Honor.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next item, item B, consideration approval of the minutes from the regular Board of Aldermen meeting from January 14th.
Motion to approve as submitted, Your Honor.
And second?
Second, Your Honor.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item, presentations and recognitions. We have one presentation this evening. Actually, didn't know, did Obie Clark, did Jimmy call you? Okay, they're going to postpone again. They couldn't make it tonight. Okay. We do have a proclamation this evening for Joel Musial. And is Joel?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And Andy, if you could please make the presentation.
If I may, Your Honor. It is my request that the Board of Aldermen consider the following proclamation and approval.
Could you just stand right there? That'd be great. Do you want to go out there too, Mandy?
I read better when I sit down. Big words. How are you doing, Joe? You look marvelous. The city of Brentwood in the state of Missouri would like to issue a proclamation to Eagle Scout Joey Musial. Whereas the purpose of the Boy Scouts of America, incorporated on February the 8th, 1910, and chartered by Congress in 1916, is to provide an educational program for the boys and young adults to build character, to train in the responsibilities of participating in citizenship, and to develop personal fitness. And whereas Joey Musial has worked in the scouting program through the ranks of Scout, Tenderfoot, Second Class, First Class, Star, Life, and served in leadership roles, serving the troop for at least 1 year. And whereas Joey Musial has completed more than 28 hours of community service, participating in 99 nights of camping, hiking over 138 miles, and is a member of the Order of the Arrow. And whereas Joey Musial completed his Eagle Scout Award on July 3rd, 2013, by planning, organizing a crew, and providing leadership through his Eagle Project to help build a butterfly garden for the Concord Elementary School, where Joey had attended earlier and then moved up into the high school, but went back and helped them. And whereas, through his active community involvement and good citizenship, Joey Musial has demonstrated his personal character of living the Scout Oath and law in his daily life, and also earned special recognition of CPR and AED training, National Youth Leadership Training, and completed the 50-miler award. Now, therefore, I'll yield to Mayor Pat Kelly, by the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Brentwood, Missouri, and on behalf of the Board of Aldermen for the city of Brentwood, do hereby congratulate Eagle Scout Joey Musial on his accomplishments, and we urge everyone to continue supporting the Boy Scouts of America in their endeavors. Joey, this is signed today's date, presented on the 3rd of February 2014. Very good. Thank you, Ron.
Standing ovation.
Thank you very much. And Joey, congratulations. Everybody's here tonight to see you. So. Next item, we have one public hearing this evening.
That's right.
And for a conditional use permit to operate a nail salon at 2814 South Brentwood. So I will gavel in the public hearing.
2814.
I cross-referenced.
Thank you, Your Honor. The public hearing this evening is a request for a conditional use permit and site plan approval to locate a nail salon at 2814 South Brentwood Boulevard. A little difficult to see on the screen, but the subject site is located on the east side of Brentwood Boulevard, located south of Manchester Road. The existing subject site is approximately 0.16 acres in size and is zoned GC General Commercial District. As the property is less than a half acre in size, it requires a conditional use permit be approved by the Board of Aldermen.
Okay. And this was reviewed by P&Z. Okay. Oh, sorry.
So a quick look at the subject site itself, giving you a little bit better information. This building with the black roof, that is the subject site, with the parking in the rear, with the building fronting directly up on Brentwood Boulevard. The zoning map of the city, again, the subject site is located right above my pen here. It's General Commercial District. It is an established commercial district with the properties to the north and south and west all being zoned and used for commercial purposes. The property does abut residential to the east, an established residential area behind it as well. And finally, the city's comprehensive plan, the future land use map. Again, very difficult to see, but the subject site lies approximately right here within the community mixed-use designation area. As you mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Commission did review the request. They made a recommendation for approval with 3 conditions of the request. Those conditions were that the rear parking lot be striped in accordance with city code to clearly delineate the parking spaces, that verification of trash service be provided prior to occupancy, and that the applicant continue to work on additional landscape treatments that could be added along the Brentwood Boulevard frontage to kind of enhance the image of it. There is an exhibit that was included in the packet for the Board of Aldermen. It shows several planting beds along with some trees that would be included in planters to kind of break up the hard surfaces that we have along there. The recommendation from Planning Commission was a vote of 6-2.
Okay, thank you. This time I'll open up to the public. If anybody'd like to address the board with respect to the conditional use permit, you could come forward and give us your name and address. Okay, hearing none, we will have an ordinance before us this evening for that item. Next, we have bids. A janitorial service for the police department.
Thank you, Mayor. The city received a proposal for janitorial services for the police department from a total of 5 vendors: Select Commercial Cleaning Services, SG360, AMB Janitorial Services, North Central, Inc., Corvus Janitorial Systems, and ISS Facility Services, Inc. Following a review by the department and presentation to Public Works, and following references that were conducted, the department and the committee both recommended that the bid be awarded to AMB Janitorial Services at $1,536 a month. This is a fixed rate for 3 years, and they currently provide janitorial services to St. Louis County Police Academy, 8 St. Louis County Police precincts, and they were highly recommended for their performance and low employee turnover. This amount is still $223 a month less than our current provider.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Your Honor, I read the contract that was presented to us with this bill.
Andy, your microphone, please.
Thank you, sir. There are terms in that contract that are not favorable to the city of Brentwood, and there are terms in there that address why we should probably not reevaluate the lower bidder based on the concerns from the police department about turnover and effectiveness of doing the job well. There is a paragraph in the contract that allows that if the city is not happy with the services, that we can address that with the service provider and have them make changes that would adjust to negate why we should move up to the 3rd lowest bidder to work with. But in the 3rd lowest bidder's contract, he's got 2 clauses in there that allow him to renegotiate the contract with the city, even though this was put out for open bid to work with, that I would like to see those 2 clauses removed.
Well, I guess I should address the first question.
Well, can we do that at the ordinance? I mean, we're,
Oh.
right, because we have an ordinance, right? So
Yes.
can we do it, take it? care of it
We can
then?
take it there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Is that okay? All right, thank you. Next item, we'll move on to the introduction or some comments and with respect to the police dispatchers. And in order to start, first of all, I want to give a little bit of history so that everybody knows kind of where we're coming from, or from the city's standpoint, a little bit of history of our dispatch center and how we got to where we are today. ECDC is a group that was formed, I won't get the years exactly right, but they're around the early 2000s, in order to create a local dispatch center for our surrounding communities. Brentwood was part of those original discussions at the time to be part of that, and we were moving in that direction. At the same time, we started the construction of the new police department, and opted at that time to move forward with our own dispatch center because we had to decide whether we were going to build that into the new department or not. And so we proceeded on our own and did not join ECDC at that time. A few years later, when the city of Rock Hill sold their police department, they needed dispatching services. And if I remember this correctly, we used the same frequency as they did, so it was easy for them to come over to the city of Brentwood. We made a proposal to them at the time that we would provide dispatch services for the city of Rock Hill and hire 3 additional dispatchers. What that did for the city of Brentwood, by doing that, it allowed us to put a second dispatcher on 2 of the shifts each day for the city of Brentwood. So currently, we have 2 dispatchers on 2 of the shifts a day, and the busiest times of the day, and then 1 dispatcher in the evenings and on Sundays. Over the last few years, with a number of the cities consolidating, creating dispatch centers, there are other options out there for the city of Rock Hill. The last few times we've negotiated, well, let me start with, when we hired the original 3 dispatchers with Rock Hill, the agreement was they would pay for those 3 dispatchers. So the original contract, they paid the city of Brentwood $180,000 a year in order to cover the cost of those employees, was all we were really looking for in order to cover that cost. But then the benefit to the city of Brentwood was we had the additional dispatcher on during those busy times. Over the last few years, with more options out there for dispatching, Rock Hill, when we've negotiated new contracts, has negotiated that number lower. Currently, they're paying us $50,000 a year in order to provide that service for the city of Rock Hill, while we're still maintaining all 3 of those employees under the original contract. Then, a couple years ago, which the city of Brentwood and a number of municipalities and municipally were very supportive of, the countywide E9, or the countywide communication system was approved, a tax in order to fund that new countywide system in St. Louis County, which was started by our former police chief back in the late 90s when we had the tanker fire down at Eagle Road, which potentially could have blown up half of the city of Brentwood with the gas that leaked into the sewer lines and creeks and those kinds of things in the community. And communications completely failed, not dispatching, just communications in general, because cell phones were so busy it was right during rush hour, and everybody in their cars were calling, and everyone was trying to call the dispatch centers, and the chief would have told you, Chief Niemeyer at the time, you could see a fire truck 100 feet away, but you couldn't communicate with the chief to tell them where they wanted to go. So the new 911 system for St. Louis County is a huge and a great advantage to everybody for safety as we move forward. This year, they're going to start to implement that. And in order to do that, our dispatch will have to upgrade the equipment in our dispatch center in order to use the new communication system. Now, that's going to cost about $350,000 to do that. That is being paid for through the county tax. That's not something that the city of Brentwood taxpayers are paying for, but it is our tax dollars. And if we do that, then we're making a commitment to keeping our existing dispatch center, in my opinion, for quite a while, because we're going to make that investment in our existing center. The County Council for the new communication system is trying to encourage, because of the technology and because of the ability to provide additional services, they're trying to encourage consolidation of some of the other smaller dispatchers like the city of Brentwood. ECDC, knowing that, they submitted a proposal to the city of Brentwood that we received around the middle of November to provide that service for us as we go forward. At the time, when we received it. After that, I met with the city administrator and met with the police chief and the fire chief individually to see if they wanted to explore the ability or the option of the city of Brentwood going and joining ECDC. I do want to correct, as I say that, one of the phrases that's been using out there in the what I consider to be a little bit of misinformation is that we're going to be outsourcing our dispatching. In my opinion, that's kind of a negative word. What we would be doing is joining our local municipalities, Webster Groves, Maplewood, Shrewsbury, Richmond Heights, Clayton, and Olivet, and joining them in this dispatch center. In public safety, those are the communities that we rely on and deal with on a daily basis for our mutual aid. More so on the fire side, almost on any call, we need the support of our local communities on the fire side, and very often on the police side as well. So we would be joining them, not necessarily outsourcing. We would also have a say in how that communication, we would have the city administrators of each one of the municipalities serves on a commission that runs the operation. The police and fire chiefs meet on a monthly basis to address any concerns and work them out for all of the communities. So again, getting back, the proposal was given to us. I met with the chiefs, with the city administrator. They both thought, in order to make this investment going forward, we should at least hear ECDC out. So my suggestion that time was that the chiefs go meet with ECDC, meet with the director, and find out how the system would work for the city of Brentwood and what it could do for us. They did that. They talked to their counterparts. They came back and said that they felt it was something that was in the best interest of the city that we move forward with. At that time, then, we took it to the Board of Aldermen at our first meeting in January. We had an executive session to discuss the proposal, which was the first opportunity the Board of Aldermen had to talk about it. And then today was the second opportunity, because this is the second meeting, that is the meeting we've had since then. I want to really stress the fact that, I know it's been difficult, especially on our dispatchers. Nobody wants to hear anybody's talking about eliminating their jobs. I hope that people know me well enough that I believe that our employees are the best asset the city of Brentwood has. We have dedicated employees, and there's nothing that means more to me than the employees that represent us and provide the services to us on a regular basis. So the proposal that was made to us by ECDC, really for them to provide the services to us, really enhances our program, but primarily with two things that we don't have today. We don't have any dispatchers that are trained and certified in fire dispatch. And I'm going to let the Chief Jury talk about that in a few minutes. But we also don't have the ability, or well, let me put it this way. What ECDC can offer us is another big advantage is a medical assist. That's not the right terminology, it's what I call it. But basically when a call comes in and somebody, if your child is choking, they have the certification to help that person on the phone, giving them directions on trying to help them through that emergency, while the other dispatchers are communicating with the EMS and paramedics en route, so they know exactly what's going on when they enter the building and able to proceed with their work as fast as possible to help those people. We don't have the ability to do that in the city of Brentwood. And so those are two of the big things that we were looking at that would be enhancements to the system that we already have. Then it came down, one of the other items that's very important is really the cost. And again, I don't want, and I've said this a number of times through this process, is that cost shouldn't be the determining factor in this. But I think everybody needs to know what we pay and what this new proposal would be for us. Currently, with our dispatchers and our operating costs from our dispatch center, we spent almost $600,000 last year. With the proposal that was made to us by ECDC to join our neighboring communities, the way they do their system is, their billing is they take their total operating cost for the year and divide that by the number of calls, and then each municipality pays for the calls that they had that year. So going by evaluating our calls from last year and going by the numbers that they paid, our fee to ECDC would be about $235,000 a year. So, you know, that's a proposal that was made to us to enter into an agreement and move our dispatch over there. So those are the things that we've been having to talk about. These are the things that we had to evaluate in order to get to this point. I know it's been difficult not being able to give this information out earlier, but while we were negotiating or even deciding how to present it and when to present it, but when we're talking about employees and this kind of contract moving forward, we needed to do it in executive session and, you know, so that we can make sure that we have everything straight before we present it to the citizens. So with that, I'm going to ask, we do have the director of ECDC here this evening. He's going to make a short presentation on what they do or what they could provide for the city of Brentwood. So Mark, if you please want to introduce yourself, or yeah, actually if you want to talk from there, that's fine too. There's a microphone right there. So.
Yes, my name is Mark Doherty, and I'm the general manager of East Central Dispatch. I've been the general manager for 3 years. Prior to that, I had 30 years with St. Louis County in charge of their IT and also their communications center. With me also tonight is Mike Mowry, and he has 30 years with St. Louis County and also in their dispatch center. Sure. As I mentioned earlier, that your 6 surrounding cities in the area here belong to ECDC. They formed ECDC back in 2004. A number of them had their own dispatch centers, and they ran into problems that are associated with a lot of dispatch centers when you only have a limited number of employees that are working. Specifically, on those times when you have one person working or fewer, when the person calls in and there's nobody here available, what they ended up doing was calling a police officer in off of the street, taking manpower off of the street, and they would end up dispatching. And in cases of dispatching fire, that can be very problematic because fire dispatching is very complicated. It is always, for serious events, going to involve multiple jurisdictions. It's gotten even more complicated over the years now with all the different fire equipment and shared resources. ECDC, to bring up the mayor's point here on outsourcing, we're a non-for-profit organization that's owned by the cities. So each one of our city owns ECDC. And the board of directors is comprised of the city managers. And then there's 2 boards, there's a police and a fire board, and they take care of the management of ECDC in that they want to make sure that our policies and our procedures are the correct policies and procedures for all of the police and fire departments that we represent. And we meet on a monthly basis, and we implement any changes or adjustments that we need to in terms of our operation. We're located over in the Richmond Heights Public Safety Building, which is right on Dale, right behind City Hall. You have the fire department, the police department, and East Central Dispatch. We're located there. We have 21 dispatchers, and myself, I'm the general manager, and we have an operations director. The dispatchers, they work 12-hour shifts, and we have a supervisor assigned to each shift. Now, all of our dispatchers are EMD, which is Emergency Medical Dispatch certified. Now, what's important about that is that in an environment where you have enough dispatchers working, what we do is when there is a call, an EMS call, it could be for someone experiencing a stroke, having a heart attack, a child choking, any type of medical emergency that you have, our dispatchers are certified and they provide the protocol or basically instructions for the person on the line. This is what you need to do. I need you to turn the child on his side. I need you to hit the child in the back. All of those protocols, medical protocols that are approved by our medical director, over at St. Mary's, and also through the company that certifies all of our dispatchers, we give those pre-arrival instructions. Simultaneously, while we're doing that on the phone, we're also dispatching the fire equipment, okay? So in our environment, we're able to do that. We have 5.2 dispatchers assigned to each watch. Our minimum staffing is right now it's 4. Our proposal for going with Brentwood, if they decide to join, that we'd have 3 additional dispatchers, 3 employees from Brentwood would come over to East Central. It would increase our minimum staffing to 5 per watch. One of the things with our dispatchers are that they allow us to handle multiple serious incidents at once, because as you're all aware, with cellular telephones and accidents and all types of incidents that are occurring outside, you're not going to get one call, you're going to get multiple calls. People pick up their phone and they call the dispatch center. And what happens is it can overwhelm a dispatch center because you can only talk to one person at a time. And I can tell you on accidents and so forth, you might get 5 or 6 calls all at one time relating to the same incident. But you still have to go through and make sure that that one call is the same call and that you don't have different calls. When you have multiple incidents that's going on of a serious nature and you only have limited staff that's working, you're overwhelmed. You're basically, if you're on the radio and you're talking, you got one caller and then you got another caller coming in, guess what? That other caller's not getting answered. The phone's just going to ring. Okay, that's just the nature of it, of a dispatch center with limited capability. It's no reflection on the dispatchers or the quality of the dispatchers, no matter what dispatching agency it is if they have only one person or 2 people working, they're going to get overwhelmed. Now, what we're proposing is on our police channel, we were proposing that Brentwood would be on our North Police channel. We have 2 police channels and we have a fire channel. If Brentwood were to join, the police would go on our North channel, so they would be in with their neighboring jurisdictions. They'd be on with Richmond Heights, who you border. You would be with Clayton on your north side, and also they would be on there with Olivet. We're proposing also that on the fire side, besides our primary dispatcher for fire, we'd also have a second dispatcher for fire to assist. On fire calls, generally they can get overwhelming, especially when they go to first and second alarms. One is primarily talking to the fire personnel and the other is taking care of notifications. When you have a serious call, in many instances you have to, especially on fire, besides talking to your own people, you have to get on mutual aid and call additional units in and have them come to assist your jurisdiction. As was mentioned earlier, our proposal for fire and police service is a significant cost savings of 50–60%, only because we are having the existing overhead associated with the calls. I think the mayor already indicated that basically what the cost would be associated with this. I can just tell you that in terms of automation with our system, it's all web-based, so it allows people in the field to have access to all the information, statistical information, and also call information is available to them. It also allows us on calls that affect Brentwood and their neighboring cities that basically everybody's hearing the same call at the same time, and we can bring other resources to bear from our neighboring jurisdictions. One provision in the proposal is that ECDC would provide remote jail monitoring of prisoners. So monitoring cameras and software would be installed in Brentwood, and that we'd monitor them in ECDC. We have a similar arrangement. There's a set of jail cells over in Richmond Heights, and we already monitor them. So that's basically what proposal we have for it.
Okay. And just so you understand that, that's what we do now with our own dispatchers. If something happens or goes, one of our residents needs something or is doing something that they shouldn't be, the dispatchers then notify the police. They don't go and take care of that person. We don't have somebody in there with the prisoners 24 hours. So that would be no different than what we're doing today, except they would monitor instead of our dispatchers. I think actually, and it was a key point, and I didn't mention it, but part of the agreement is that ECDC would hire 3 of our dispatchers. Another thing that's relevant to this decision too, or at least I would hope for our dispatchers, is that St. Louis County has 10 vacancies that they're going to be filling shortly with bringing their new system online. And, the city of Brentwood, I think it would be appropriate, talk to staff, our HR director and the city administrator, and we would help our dispatchers with resumes and those kinds of things in the applications and applying for those new jobs, if that's a decision the board makes. I would also recommend to the board that, if we go forward with this, that we also decide on some kind of severance for our employees, since we're eliminating those positions. I would think at least 2 months of severance pay while they're looking for their new employment as well. So those are some of the things that we were going to do, or we can do, to help the employees if that's the decision we decide to make. Now I'd like to ask Chief Drury if maybe he could make a couple of comments as well.
Thank you, Mayor. As you said, this proposal was brought to us in November. Chief Despennett and I have had several meetings on it. We've met with our counterparts in other cities. I've met with all the other fire chiefs that use ECDC. I've worked directly with ECDC since their inception. I'm very familiar with how they operate. The thing that ECDC brings to the table that we don't have now, we have 60 hours a week where we only have 1 dispatcher on duty. In the event of a serious fire, active shooter, anything like that, the dispatcher's automatically, immediately overwhelmed. They still have to continue to answer 911 calls, dispatch police, dispatch fire, dispatch all the appropriate calls as they come in on top of that existing call. Plus, ECDC also offers emergency medical dispatching, which we do not do. That's been proven to be a lifesaver nationwide. It's my opinion, as the department head and for the residents of the city of Brentwood, that ECDC is an upgrade. That is a better service, and it's my recommendation that we go with ECDC. I think that they will provide all the services that we need in a very professional manner, and again, it's my recommendation that we go with ECDC.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Tom or Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor. Mark, if we could, there has been probably an overwhelming curiosity or concern on behalf of the residents regarding response time. Could you go over the topic of whether the response time is affected regardless of the location of the dispatcher?
Yes. The 911 system is designed so that all the 911 calls, actually, they go into a call center. They terminate actually over in Webster Groves as a call center, and then they go out from there. So there's no time delay associated with actually routing a call, whether it's to Brentwood or it's to ECDC, which literally we're only 1.5 miles outside of your jurisdiction over there. Routing the calls, there's no difference in call in the time it takes to do that. In terms of call processing time, I tried to get some statistics because I don't know what they are at Brentwood, but I can tell you what ours are. For example, on fire calls, it's 43 seconds. On EMS calls, it's 55, and then on police calls, it's 64 seconds to process these calls. There's in terms of us being located just over in Richmond Heights, really doesn't have an impact in terms of how long it takes to process and to send the call. We do take our dispatchers and we do ride-alongs in all the cities, so they get familiar with all these streets and so forth, but some of them, they live in the area anyway.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have a question? Okay. All right. Well, again, this is the information that the elected officials have been trying to digest and to make a decision whether we want to move forward or not. I think what we'll do from here is at our next Board of Alderman meeting, we will have an ordinance drafted, and then the board can make their decision whether they want to move forward with ECDC at that point. I think, again, we wanted to get the information out at least so that people understood what the board would be using in evaluating that and deciding whether to go forward with that. I will tell you, it's a little frustrating, or maybe I could just point out a couple things from an elected official standpoint. I can assure you that we don't take any of this type of decision lightly. But I would like to point out that when other cities have made this change, I'll just be very blunt. There hasn't been this controversy. Frontenac just switched over, joined with Town and Country and Creve Coeur, or with their dispatch. When ECDC was formed a number of years ago, we didn't hear of it. And I can assure you, if the residents of our neighboring communities weren't getting the appropriate 911 service, you would be hearing about that. It's unfortunate today, but we as a community and our surrounding communities, we rely on each other on a daily basis from a public safety standpoint. We rely on the mutual aid with fire. When we have a major incident, our police work very closely together as well. And that coordinated communication system is really something that is important to their operation, not only for our residents' safety, but for the safety of those employees as well. And so, again, these are the things that we as the elected officials have to take into consideration when we're making a decision like that. So from my standpoint, and I think I speak from everybody on the board, it isn't something that any of us take lightly, but now you have the information that we have, so which I think is important as well. So with that, we'll move on to
Do you have a recommendation from the police department?
excuse me?
Do you have a recommendation from the police department? We heard from the fire department. We didn't hear from the police department.
Well,
Where's the chief?
actually, Chief DeSpennett called me late Friday, and he decided he was going to retire. I don't want to speak for the chief, although he was in favor of this.
What about the major in charge of communications? He's right here.
Excuse me, don't talk from the audience. I will ask you to leave, please. Steve sent an official email this morning. I hadn't received anything yet, so I didn't say anything publicly until now because I didn't have anything in writing, but sent an email to the board this afternoon that was his final decision. Just so the public does know, over the weekend I did receive a letter signed by, I believe, 24 of the policemen saying that they would prefer to keep our existing dispatch. Again, I appreciate that because I know these are their coworkers and their friends, and they rely on them and know them. But in this evaluation process, we need to make sure that we're doing what's best for the community, not only today but in the future, if we're going to make that investment. So that's where that stands. With that, we'll move on to item 8. Hear of any matters of any persons present. If anybody would like to address the Board of Aldermen, please come forward and give us your name and address.
My name is Laura Beckman. I'm a Brentwood dispatcher, and I have been for 34 and a half years. The police officers did write a letter to the mayor and board of aldermen, and they asked me to read it to the public. Mayor Pat Kelly and board of aldermen, we, the undersigned Brentwood police officers, have drafted this letter in support of our Brentwood dispatchers. It is hard to put into words the safety net these individuals provide. We understand that comparing one dispatch center to another might seem interchangeable to some, but as police officers, we depend on their services every day. We can assure you that it is not interchangeable. As a police department, we occupy approximately 80 to 90% of all radio traffic on Brentwood's channels. We communicate our every move on all emergency police calls, non-emergency calls, self-initiated calls, and all fire calls. That said, the contemplation of becoming an additional agency to an already busy dispatch center such as East Central is of huge concern. This is not to discredit the individuals who work for East Central, as we believe they are dedicated to providing the best service they can under the circumstances. However, we also believe that adding an additional police department to an already busy agency would not be in the best interest of the citizens of Brentwood or the public safety employees who strive to serve them. It is impossible to overstate the quality of service and knowledge our Brentwood dispatchers provide to the citizens. A lot of citizens never have, nor will ever, hear this service. But for the citizens that have needed the police department or will need them in the future, we hope that you can understand why having a quality dispatch center is essential to our job. Please listen to your public safety employees whose lives depend on the quality of communication our dispatchers provide. Being added to a channel with multiple other agencies will cause a delay in services if for no other reason than the sheer volume of radio traffic and call-ins. Our dispatchers are the men and women who help to ensure that we return home safe to our families on a daily basis. Please consider the magnitude of your decision on this matter, because at any moment while we are working, our lives may depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brandon Jones. I live at 2637 Helen Avenue. I just want to say one thing about the emergency medical dispatch was kind of played up, made to sound like a big deal. The class for the Academy of Emergency Medical Dispatch is a 2-day class. When I took it 4 years ago, it cost $300. So that means that to get all of our dispatchers certified would be, what, less than $3,000, I believe? That's all I have. Thank you.
I have worked for Brentwood for 3 years. I came from a multi-jurisdictional dispatch. I worked for Ferguson.
Could you, I'm sorry, your name, please?
Leslie. I
Last
worked
name,
at Ferguson, Grazer.
Thank you.
I worked at Ferguson, which at the time dispatched for themselves, Delwood, Calverton Park, Cool Valley, Country Club. I believe that might be it. Before I left, they also had Floridel Hills. In that time period, I can tell you that having a multi-jurisdictional dispatch center does make your response time slower. You're taking multiple calls. No offense to East Central, they do a great job, but I can tell you working at Brentwood also, you're gonna have a delay in your calls. I've had to transfer calls to them. It takes multiple rings on the 911 system, where at Brentwood, we have a quicker answering the phone call. We're able to dispatch that call right away, keep the person live on the phone, get our officers and our fire en route by hitting the tones right then and there. You're not gonna get that at East Central. I can tell you that now. And as far as making your decision, I hope that all of you go into our dispatch center and actually see what we do every day, see how we take the calls. I worked there for 3 years and have maybe seen 2 of you in our dispatch center. I've taken calls from multiple of you. We've gotten people there right away. Our city does numerous traffic stops. That's a large portion of our call volume. We have the time at Brentwood to actually run that plate and run the subjects who own that vehicle before our officers even get out of the car, so we can warn them if that person's armed or if they're dangerous. If they have warrants, you're not going to get that in a multi-jurisdictional dispatch center. They don't have the time to run owners of vehicles before that police officer gets out of the vehicle. And that's where you're going to get most of your officers' injured calls are on police stops, especially with the amount of subjects we have that come through our shopping centers. So that is, I think that is one of the most important things to consider when making your decision. As far as the money goes, you know, I was at the last meeting and I remember being told that it wasn't about the money. Well, if it's not about the money, then to me it's about the safety of our officers and our citizens. And in no way is this going to make the officers safer. If you have all but one police officer who signed a petition stating to save dispatch, that right there should be enough to tell you that this isn't a smart move safety-wise for them or for your citizens. And they're the most important people in this whole equation, not the money we're saving. Because you can take that figure and strip dispatch, go to East Central, you're gonna have to probably pay for another administrative person inside of the police department. Because right now, your dispatchers help book in those prisoners paper-wise. We send off the hit verifications if they have warrants. We take bond money, which a lot of municipalities don't have dispatchers do. We send paperwork to City Hall to let them know that they're no longer wanted subjects in the system, to take them out. Their bonds have been cleared. And then on top of that are numerous administrative duties like updating business contacts, calling them. I've never worked for a police department where we have kept our business contacts so updated. We contact them every single year, wanting codes, wanting to know if their employees have changed to get a hold of them, if their business is closed. That's a service that has to be done if we want our businesses happy. And I can tell you, you're gonna have to have another administrative person to do that. Not to mention the extra steps we do in helping the detectives run paperwork and the multiple people that are in the upper offices there that need assistance. I used to help with grant paperwork. We don't just do our jobs, we do multiple jobs administrative-wise. And then as far as the fire department goes, since I've been there for 3 years, I have seen the assistant chief in dispatch several times assisting us. I have never once been told to go to a training class. They've offered one training class. That's all they've offered our dispatchers. If they want us to be certified in something else, all of us would be more than happy to do that. We don't, I mean, to us, more education makes us better at our jobs, so we're not gonna say no to that. So I think you need to consider those things too before you make a decision and go with East Central. So that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Craig Eisenbeis. I'm a police officer at the City of Brentwood. Been here for 23 years. Mayor, you said that when the inception, none of these other departments had any complaints. Well, we've been able to sit back and we've been able to listen because we monitor and scan all these other channels. We are able to hear the calls come out. Sometimes we even give them the information for the call, and there's been numerous occasions where it's taken them 8 minutes to dispatch a call on an accident on Eagle Road. That's after our dispatcher has given the information to their dispatcher and for their dispatcher to put it out to the car. To me, that's unacceptable. 8 minutes is way too long for any type of call. So one would think that maybe the reason why that is they're too busy. Again, we are not that busy here for that delay. To me, a response time is very critical and is what the citizens deserve. They need, when they pick up the phone, they get a dispatcher, they get an officer, they should have an officer at their house within a couple of minutes. That's what they pay for. Also, when we were talking about the 911 delay, it wasn't from the time that the phone goes, they pick it up. That's not the delay we're talking about. We're talking about from the time they get the information and they dispatch it, they give the information to the cars on the street. That's the delay time we're talking about. Any delay is unacceptable. We are not as busy as some of these other departments. That is true. And that's a good thing. We are able to handle our calls in a very expeditious manner. And that is what is important to the citizens of this town. And that's what we should be looking out for. Yes, my safety is important, but we're being paid by the citizens to do a job. And by going to East Central, that's going to hamper the ability for us to do our job in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Officer Nick Lang. I've been with the City of Brentwood for 7 years as a police officer. I was a police officer elsewhere prior to that. Been a police officer for about 10 years. For the record, I think you all have a very difficult decision to make, and I don't envy you. I know you get to hear all kinds of different stuff. I have a couple different questions here. Sir, with regard to the EMD training, who trained East Central's dispatchers to be EMD certified?
It's the national organization out of Utah. It's the National Academy.
Is that the certification, or did they train it? Is there a reason that our fire department couldn't train our dispatchers to do the exact same thing under the guidance? Because you guys have to be, you guys are working under the guidance of the medical director from St. Mary's. Is that correct, sir? That's what you said.
That's something separate, but the certification is from trainers.
Yeah.
Sure. The certification comes from the certifying agency in Utah, ProQA, through the National Academy there.
Did they send somebody out, or did you guys train in accordance to their standards?
They have
Rick,
classes.
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt? Rick, ask your questions and then we'll try to answer them, but I don't want to get back and forth debate.
Understand, sir. Understand. I realize it's time complaint. Basically, I feel that there's no reason our fire department couldn't train our dispatchers to do that. Second of all, according to the dispatchers that I've spoken with, the fire department, our fire academy, doesn't have any sort of training class for that. So this would have to be an in-house thing. And if we've already got the fire department working with each other on continuing education, and that's the whole reason they have the classroom upstairs, there's no reason we couldn't get our dispatchers trained in whatever way is necessary. Second of all, how many call takers does East Central have on duty at one point in time? The gentleman, and I'm sorry, sir, I've forgotten your name, forgive my manners. The gentleman stated that they have a minimum of 4 on duty. Well, if you've got an East Central 1, which handles, if I recall correctly, the northern channels, which would be Richmond Heights, Clayton, and Olivet, you're going to have 1 fire and 1 police. And then you have East Central 2, which is going to be Maplewood, Webster Groves, and Shrewsbury. Again, 1 fire, 1 police. You're going to have 1 dispatcher working each of those channels. Sometimes they're going to have to double up. My understanding is they have 1 call taker and everybody else running those channels. How many phone calls can 1 call taker handle? How is that any different than what we have right now when we have 2 on? Because all of our dispatchers are trained and can run fire and EMS, fire, EMS, and police simultaneously, and we have 1 handling phone calls. So that kind of negates that argument. One advantage we have with our current dispatching is that we have a direct communication. We have 1 step to get into with fire. In a situation like the Ryan Hummert shooting where the firefighter was murdered in Maplewood, we don't have to run through another step to get to somebody else. I call our dispatch, our firefighters are talking to our dispatch, they can relay directly. There's no downtime. With regard to dispatching time, there may not be a discrepancy between when the information gets relayed to dispatch. I can tell you from experience, there's a big discrepancy between the time that dispatch gets the information and East Central dispatch puts it out. Again, they're busy, we get that. But 8 minutes or longer for a non-emergency call, if we have a car accident on Eager Road or on Hanley that happens not to be in our venue, I've got people who've just been in an accident, they may have been injured, they may not have been injured, either way they're shaken up. I can't leave them there unless we've got something ridiculously serious going on. In the meantime, I'm tied up sitting there waiting, trying to help them and collect information to help the Richmond Heights or Maplewood officer or whoever it is until they get there. And East Central has taken as long as 15 minutes to put that out. I was also working the night, I don't know how many of you remember this. There was a University City restaurateur who was murdered in Maplewood just a few years back. I was working the night that happened. It took East Central more than 5 minutes to kick that over to the other channel from East Central 2 to East Central 1. I heard it on the scanner. It's 5 minutes for a murder. That's unacceptable. Now I realize the dispatcher was overwhelmed and stressed. I can't be a dispatcher, do their job, hats off to them. But 5 minutes on a major case like that before you're kicking it over to responding agencies, is this what you really want to do? It affects your citizens' lives. The final recommendation I would make, you stated, Mr. Mayor, that it was $350,000 to change over to our dispatch, to upgrade the radios if we were doing it on our own, but it's not going to cost the city anything because the county's already paid for that. Would the city be able to, let's say we go to East Central, let's say it doesn't fit, Let's say the citizens don't want it. Let's say it's determined that that's not a good idea. Will the city be able to afford to go back to our own dispatch? Or is this a decision that once made cannot be undone? I ask you all to consider that. These are all serious questions. You all live here. I have the privilege of working for you, as our dispatchers do. Please let us do our job the best way we can. Thank you.
My name is Jeff Manistar. I'm a resident of Brentwood and a Brentwood police officer. First of all, Chief Jury, you stated that Brentwood residents, as a Brentwood resident, you want this. Sorry. As a Brentwood resident, I know I don't want this, and I've lived in this community my whole life. And it's emotional for me because I heard someone state that I've heard other police departments talk about how we're spoiled here because we have the best pay, the best equipment, the best everything. And part of that is the best dispatch, and I am spoiled. But to take that away from us, I feel to say that the service will be better at another dispatch, it's just not so. I have so many people, I can tell you, every agency, the first time I talk to them, I go, hey, can you tell me what about this? And they go, oh man, no, you don't want that. But don't tell them I told you that. And it's one of those things that they can't put their name forward. But one name I can put forward is, I know I don't want this. I know I live in Brentwood and I don't want this. I don't want this for my family. And I've used the fire department, I've used the police department, and I just know that we have the best of both worlds, and I don't want that to change. And I was at the tanker fire in 1996. I was there. It's a catastrophe. It happens. Everything, the world was coming to an end. The whole neighborhood looked like it was on fire. That happens. Whether it's East Central or Brentwood's dispatching, it's not going to make any difference. Who's dispatching? You're going to have calamity. Plus, they took the communication center and they put it on top of the area that was in danger. That was the problem with communications. They put it on top of the creek that was supposed to explode. And when I went to a Code 1000, they talked about that. And they talked about how it was a big mess because they put the command center on top of an area that they couldn't. I don't know how it affects the fire. I just know that, I wouldn't want them to suffer, but I know our dispatchers work their fannies off. And I'm so spoiled that I could run a car full of 4 people, do this, do that. Other departments, they have to go on their walkie-talkie, or they have to go on their computer and not pay attention to the car in front of them. And I know that I don't think we've ever got a policeman seriously hurt or a fireman seriously hurt in Brentwood. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Louise Charbonneau, 8833 Madge.
I didn't know anybody had that either.
I'll answer it.
Yeah, please do. If we're supposed to duck.
That's funny.
Has that ever happened
Never heard it ring.
Would you like to switch over to charter?
Well, I'm concerned that it's the red phone, and isn't that what Khrushchev and Kennedy had? The red phone? I can only speak to this issue as a resident of Brentwood for the past 40 years. I've only had occasion to call the police department twice, and never the fire department. The responses on both of those occasions were outstanding. The mayor is justifiably proud of our city's superior staff, public safety, administration. He says they are attracted and retained by the city because the city can afford to pay our employees superior wages. Our dispatchers' only priority is service to the private and commercial citizens of Brentwood and Rock Hill. Because we get, now I don't remember what percentage of our revenues come through the promenade and Brentwood and down on the, you know what I mean. Yep. We owe them a distinct extra step, timeliness, if something goes down at that location. And I think through the Brentwood Dispatch Center, we are able to provide that. We don't want to sacrifice that priority that our own dispatch center gives to us. And for the last several years, the buzz phrase shouted from every political mountaintop has been job creator. If John Boehner had said that one more time in the last couple of years, probably my TV would have had to been taken down to the recycle center. Now Brentwood is ready to become a job eliminator. Loyal people who are in service to us, the citizens and the commercial citizens. A job evaporator, just like any company that installs a robot on the assembly line, a self-service check stand in the store, or invents a better mousetrap and has it produced in China. These are good American jobs. They don't require college degrees. They're a step up into the middle class, and I think our people deserve better. Thank you.
Julie Pozo, St. Clair. I'm taking this in a little different direction. Currently, Mayor Kelly, you have personally written a code of conduct that you want to adopt tonight by the board. In this code, you have written a clause that in effect states the alderman we elect into office will no longer be able to see documents without the approval of subcommittee or the whole board. The residents elect the people we feel are most competent and trustworthy to oversee the operations of the city. I expect my aldermen to have access to any and all documents that will help them do their job that we elected and pay them to do. Again, I have to ask, why are you trying to avoid any investigation? It seems that we have a pattern of avoiding investigation. One, when it was discovered by some employees that Chris Seamer was stealing, what did we do? We had our own police investigate instead of outside law enforcement, thereby controlling the scope of the investigation. Two, we were sued by Eager Road Associates for not living up to our part of the agreement with the Meridian Development. $400,000 was found missing, and according to one of the parties' deposition, he offered to pay for an audit, and we refused, much to his surprise. If the missing money was truly a mistake of miscoding, why didn't we file a claim with our insurance company? Why do we need to borrow $400,000 from Eagle Bank? Why didn't we have the money somewhere in our coffers? Were we trying to avoid an investigation? Three, my husband Jim Pozo filed a claim on Chris Seamer's bond. The bond company told him he could file, but then after filing was told he needed the city's authorization to file. State law requires mayors and city administrators be bonded for faithful performance of their jobs. These bonds are required to protect us, the taxpayer, from non-faithful performance by our city leaders. There is no cost to file a claim, and the city has the potential of recovering $100,000. The city voted in closed session not to file a claim. Again, were we trying to avoid an investigation? Anonymous packages were sent to then candidate Maureen Saunders to 4 of her close supporters in Ward 1, I being one of the recipients. We have Hal Goldsmith and the Missouri Ethics to thank for the investigation that led us to Glenn Jamberitz as being the responsible party. We now know that others were involved, yet certain Board of Aldermen members are reluctant to investigate. An investigation needs to be done in order to send a strong message to those responsible that such intimidation tactics are not acceptable in our city. What do I tell my daughter who is frightened when we receive the anonymous packages? Do I tell her, honey, this is politics, and you can do it as long as you can get away with it? Again, if the board votes not to investigate further, we have to ask why. Where is our attorney in all this? Does the city attorney have a responsibility to keep city officials from violating state and city laws? For one, Glenn Jamberitz was hired by the city without going out for bid. That is against our code. Bola, why did you let that happen? You were here.
I was not here.
Yeah.
I thought you were.
I was not.
Okay, I'm sorry. Mayor Kelly, why did Jamberitz owe you a favor? Why did you invite him into the election? This continues to be a problem, and then some of you board members ask why I don't have any trust.
I spoke to the police issue first because I did want to stop the flow if there were any other officers or injured parties who wanted to speak. I can tell Julie why she has no trust. That started a long time ago. We had a president who said, I am not a crook. We had a president who said, I did not have sex with that woman. We had a president who stood on an aircraft carrier maybe in 2004 and said, mission accomplished, while thousands of others were maimed and national treasure despoiled. There is no trust. You can ask any pollster, you can ask any political. I watch them on TV. I'm an old lady. I watch the TV news. With regard to this proposed code of conduct, the proposal sent me to my dictionary to look up the word draconian, a word I'd heard throughout my life but never had to look up. Draconian in the dictionary is designating a law or code of extreme severity. Policy A, Rule 3 of the suggested code is draconian, requiring that individual members of the board have information requests approved by a majority vote of the board. This section is, to me, the impetus for the entire code. On 2 occasions now, Mr. Mayor, I've heard you suggest that aldermen might be required to make requests under the Freedom of Information Act, the fee for which would be paid for out of their own pockets. Well, anybody has to go to the Freedom of Information Act, I'll spot you. I don't have much, but I'll spot you on that one. So that, to me, is the crux of this issue, an attempt to restrict information available to aldermen who are exercising their duty to protect and further the interests of the citizens they represent. When an alderman approaches the mayor or staff for information, those individuals should remember that the individual alderman making that request is not alone. He or she is accompanied by the hundreds who voted them into office. And I don't know the ward breakdown for voters, so hundreds, maybe thousands. I don't know how many people put you there, but you're going to stay there until they decide to fire you. Andy Leahy is my alderman. I want him to be welcome in City Hall, to look into every closet, every drawer, and under every bed for information. Now, the last, of course, is the old joke about looking under the bed to see what kind of a person that housekeeper. That's my definition of open, trustworthy government. In the last year, I had an occasion to ask the city administrator and her assistant for a couple pieces of information that were critical to things I wanted to say to you all. Both Bola and Octavia were gracious and accommodating and filled in the information that I could not find online, although we all know how bad I am online anyway. But had I appeared in their office doorways every other day with a problem, I expect I could have been greeted and should have been greeted with, "What? You again?" Surely a single-page, simple protocol can be developed to address the issues raised in the proposed draconian code of conduct. Thank you.
Matt Saunders, 2326 Park Ridge. Louise is at the Funny Bone this weekend, by the way. I'm also about the code of conduct because you guys are being asked to vote for something, and I brought up last time, it's like, you're being asked to vote for something, but how many demands were made of the city employees in the last 60 days, and how much time did it require? You're being asked to vote for something with no facts. That's concerning because you need the facts before you can vote. As far as the rule she was talking about, aldermen getting information, last time we only had the mayor and the city administrator looking at the information, and I'm saying this to you now, Mayor, it didn't work out very well for you. I mean, he threw you under the bus. He did a number on you. My question is, what is your thought process that you want to go back to risking that again? And then more importantly, what is your thought process putting the citizens' tax dollars at risk again? I don't understand why you would do that to yourself. It didn't work out. Now you have some great eyes. You're really good at accounting. My wife took accounting. These are the eyes that you want. These are the experts that you need to make sure. I mean, if you're paying a bill, you probably should know what you're paying for. And you've got the experts now that have accounting degrees that know how to do that. It really scares me that you guys would even think about voting something without vetting out the facts. And that would be the question I'd be happy to hear from any alderman. How do you explain to one of your constituents that you voted for something and you never looked at the facts? How do you explain it? How do you explain to your constituents, I will vote without knowing why I'm voting because this is what someone else told me to do? That's not why we elected you. And I can only ask you, please, this is bad. Don't vote for it.
Susan Ryan Pine. As you all know, the code of conduct, the ethics in the code of conduct is an area of interest to me. And I've done considerable research and a considerable amount of research on this, and over the course of my career, I've had additional experience. In my personal opinion, the current proposal falls far short of best practice. I'd like to provide you with some information. I will continue to read and continue to look at it, but I think that you might find it interesting so that we can develop some sort of positive, inclusive approach to developing an ethics code, one that's based on values. I think Brentwood would benefit from that. Thanks.
Karen Smith. I was not able to attend the last Board of Aldermen meeting, but had several comments related to the discussions that occurred at that meeting when I watched the tape on the internet. The first is in regards to the Missouri Ethics Commission's findings against Mr. Jamboretz. I did want to state that I was the one that filed that complaint with the Ethics Commission. I did so because I thought the materials that were distributed in the 2012 campaign were inappropriate and that they closely resemble materials that were distributed in 2005 when I ran for an office. When I ran, there were several people in my ward that told me that they wanted to support me but felt that they could not because they would not get good police and fire protection if they supported candidates that were not aligned with the mayor. It didn't make sense to me at the time, but after recent comments made by Mr. Jamboretz, it becomes clearer to me now. As much as I don't want to believe that we have fire and police employers that would stoop to the level of intimidation, when it comes up multiple times and under many different circumstances, one must wonder. What really frustrates me is if this really is going on, that we have people that are degrading two of the most honorable professions that are out there. People in Brentwood should feel free to run for office without fear of intimidation and harassment. The candidates that ran recently had dead possums, jam delivered to their door. When I ran, we had feces and raw eggs. In a most recent meeting, Mr. Mayor, you felt that you needed to protect yourself against some threats and harassments that you were receiving. So does everyone else in Brentwood. I think at the last aldermanic meeting, there were a couple of aldermen that were suggesting that we need to investigate this, and I do think that needs to take place. I think we owe it to our fire and police, because if there isn't anything going on, then we need to clear their good names. I think that's terrible that Mr. Jamboretz would be out there saying that if that's not true. And we need to make sure that he knows that. The second thing is in regards to the code of conduct. I do support conducting business in a professional manner, but I'm concerned about the sections in the code of conduct that limit aldermanic access to information. It seems to inhibit the way the sequence events occurs when most communities and governmental agencies develop their laws and ordinances. It restricts the Board of Aldermen from being able to do what we've elected them to do. It seems that we would want to have the flow of information and discussion to ensure that the Board of Aldermen has the information that they need to be comfortable with their decision. And as a previous resident commented on, as an alderman, or as a resident, I want to be able to ask my alderman why they voted a certain way and what information they had. It's very frustrating to me when I ask a question and they don't really even know or understand what they were voting on, which used to occur. I don't feel it as much anymore with some of the aldermen that I speak with. So I think having the ability for them to get the information that they need so that not only that they can feel comfortable with the decisions that they're making, but so that they can explain it to us as well is essential. Given our history, and I don't want to drag us all through that again, it seems that we should want more information. We should be comfortable with sharing more, not less. Unless, of course, we still have things to hide. At the last meeting, one of the aldermen was told that they need to contact the other municipalities from which the mayor drafted the code of conduct. that's before you tonight. I don't know why we wouldn't have been, I don't know why the other cities that were consulted in order to develop our code of conduct wouldn't have been brought forward to all of the aldermen so that they could, all of the aldermen at the same time could see how other cities structured their codes. It would have only strengthened our code. It doesn't seem to make sense to me to have each one of the individual aldermen conducting, or those aldermen that want to do some more research, each municipality on their own, and possibly even residents like myself. If I wanted to do some additional research and would have needed to have contacted each of those municipalities on my own, you could have had 2 or 3 additional requests coming into those other municipalities. And I'm sure they would have appreciated having a more efficient system here in Brentwood rather than having us contact each of these municipalities ourselves personally. Interestingly, when I watched that tape on the internet, later in the meeting, another alderman asked to have a copy of the Missouri Ethics Commission's filings against Jamborettes, to have his background information to determine how to move forward. It was felt that the Board of Aldermen didn't have all of the facts, and it was felt it was okay for city resources to be used for that. So if we want to improve the code of conduct, it'll have to be consistently applied, and not just to the aldermen that you feel like you want to support and not the others. And lastly, the code of conduct is being brought forward tonight as a resolution. And I'm assuming that resolutions don't need to have an alderman bringing it forward like you do on the ordinances. You know, the ordinances, we always have who the aldermen are that are bringing that bill forward. And I guess I'm assuming that with resolutions, we don't need that because I'm not seeing that on the resolution. And if it is passed, will that have the same weight as an ordinance? And then lastly, in trying to get up to speed on this dispatch issue, I don't have notes written down on this, so this might be a little sketchy. But I don't know if this is a dispatch issue, but with the Tillis Park light display, there was a Sunday night when I was going west on 40, so I was getting on at Brentwood Boulevard. And of course, it was all backed up, and you had to wait forever to get up there to be able to merge into Highway 40. But I couldn't merge into Highway 40 because the lane that you merge into was all backed up from cars that had their signals on to merge right, and the right lane was all backed up well into Brentwood. And by the time I had to kind of work my way over, and by the time I worked my way over, I was getting into the middle lane, and there was a big truck, 18-wheeler, coming in very fast, and by the grace of God, there was nobody in the lane next to me because he came up on me too fast. I didn't realize he was that close. And so I was frightened by the incident, and I called the next day. I called St. Louis County. They told me how it works, that they operate up until Ellsworth, and when the traffic backs up to Ellsworth on McKnight Road, they then put the word out and let the other police that man the exit ramps know about that, and then they're responsible for picking up the management of those. When I called I called Ladue Police, they said that they operate the ramp going west, getting off Highway 40, going east, and that one was closed. But when I said, what about the ramp going west, they said, that's Richmond Heights. So then I called Richmond Heights. Richmond Heights told me that, yes, they got the call, but no, they weren't there that night because they were busy over in the Galleria, because it's Christmas season, and Galleria's got a lot of issues going on over there that they were busy with. So then I said, well, what's the backup plan? And they said, well, we call other municipalities. And I said, so where were they? And they said, well, we don't know. So I don't know if that's a dispatch issue, but it is a problem. I've written a letter to St. Louis County alerting them to the fact that they're on notice that is a problem. It's a real problem for us as a region to hold these bigger events that cross municipalities, because that's a perfect example of how we don't always work well together and how there's breakdowns in communication. So although I do support stronger communication, I would want to make sure that some of the issues that have been brought up related to response time are addressed, because I'm not so sure that the coordination really works the way we think that they do, because Richmond Heights, if I'm understanding this correctly, is already part of this multi-jurisdictional system. So it's just something we need to make sure that they really do have the ability to coordinate that if they have metrics that they can share with us. And also, I like the idea of someone earlier commenting on what is our backup plan if it doesn't work for us, how do we pull back out of that, and whether we can get our dispatch system back. because it's a major investment, and I think some people have attested that they are very good. And I have also used, unfortunately, police and fire, and I've never had a problem with any sort of response times. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Angie Holshop. I live at 8735 Rosalie. I'm just going to keep this real quick. I just want to say that I have 2 young sons. My youngest has asthma. Last winter, I had to call 911, and within probably 30 seconds or less, the ambulance was there and helping me. And the thought of watching my child struggle to take a breath because it's going to take longer for the ambulance to get there really scares me. And I think just what I want to say is, why take a chance of breaking something that's already fixed? Thank you.
Denise Sebbing, 2612 Porter, and I just want to say I'm appalled that we're talking about approving a code of conduct when we know that there have been violations of ethics happening in our community, and we, or at least people at the top of this organization, have not done their job in investigating the atrocities that happened at the last campaign. I actually called and asked City Hall when those letters were going out why the city wasn't trying to get to the bottom of who was doing this, and they were told, well, we can't because they're anonymous. Excuse me? You're talking about putting a code of conduct in, which is talking about how people should act and treat each other, and yet you couldn't do something about how people that are sitting here now, luckily, were able to overcome some of the barriers that they were put in front of them, and some of the things, the awful things that were said about them, they were able to make it to this board. But you're talking about putting a code of conduct to restrict them from asking for information to make decisions that are important to the residents, and yet we still have not done anything as a community against the whole violation that Mr. Jambretz has done to this community. I think it's atrocious that we're talking about doing this without first addressing the issues that we know are at hand.
Yeah, as soon as we're done.
I'm Mike McGee from 2026 Spanish Drive. Excuse me. And I just wanted to relate an experience that I had this fall. I was at the Congregational Church for a funeral, and a lady had a seizure while we were there. My wife picked up her cell phone, called 911, and I don't know where that call goes, but I was able to go around the corner down to the fire station and get the EMS people before that call ever went. They kept asking her for a street address, and she told them that she was at Brentwood and Litzinger at the Congregational Church, and they had no idea of where that was. That concerns me a little bit with changing our dispatch. Our guys are good. The other one I'd like to know is if we upgrade our radio systems, what benefit does that have to our response time? My insurance agent continually tells me that my insurance is one of the lowest in the county because of our fire and police department response times. So.
Okay. I will close public comment. I will try to touch on a couple of these items, and then I'll give Mark a chance to maybe try to comment on a couple of the things that were said as well. Matter of fact, Mark, I'll let you go first if you, with respect to something. With respect to that last comment, actually, if you were calling from the Congregational Church, that should have gone to our dispatch. That should have gone to Brent.
It's a cell phone, sometimes they go to the
Okay, all right. So, okay. Mark?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to address individual incidents, without having ahead of time gathering the information and being able to research, to be quite honest with you. I know there was the One of the issues that was mentioned was the problem on the exit ramps getting on in the 40 interchange. Sometimes when there's incidents and you're requesting us to get cars out, and especially if it's for Richmond Heights or Maplewood or some of our other agencies, what we have is they have no cars in service. When they have no cars in service, we can't dispatch it out. We do call their supervisors on their cell phones, and that's their protocol. They want us to hold the calls for them. We're not going to give them to another agency depending upon what they are. I don't know if that occurred in the incident that was mentioned, but I know that it happens in many instances. As you can imagine, when you have a major storm come through and you have wires down, all fire departments, they can't go to all the wires down call. Basically, we keep them in a queue and hold them for the fire departments as they become available. So holding calls it'd be the same thing. I can't address Brentwood, but I can tell you in the other agencies that we had, they had to hold calls when they didn't have any officers available. If you have 3 officers working and you have 6 calls, you have to hold some calls.
I've been here 20 years, I don't ever hold any calls. So
Okay. As I mentioned, I'm not addressing Brentwood. I'm addressing the other agencies because I don't know. Lost my train of thought.
The call takers was another comment, Mark. The call takers, how many people you have on taking calls?
Right now, for example, we have 5 people that are on a watch. We have 4 for minimum staffing, okay? In terms of taking phone calls, there are 3 people on the radios, but they also take calls and you have another person on phone. So you don't have just one person answering phone calls. So they answer phone calls, plus they do dispatching duties. Because, to be honest with you, there's a lot of downtime on the radio channels. For example, in North, even at the busiest time when we did the survey, 9 minutes out of the 60 minutes was busy with radio traffic. Otherwise, they're running people or they're doing other things. So that's normal for a dispatch center. I can't compare ourselves to the dispatcher who mentioned the Ferguson Dispatch Center because I'm not familiar how they operate. I can just tell you how we operate. And I want people just to be rest assured, we don't hold the calls unless it's for a reason and they're priority 2 calls or unless the jurisdiction doesn't have any cars available and we get them out as soon as possible.
Okay. Alderman Lay.
Mark, if you could address the request about clarification on the emergency medical service training to your dispatchers and how that is accomplished.
There's a national agency that we get certification from. They have classes that are set up in the St. Louis area. They do it nationwide. We send our dispatchers to training. Abbott Ambulance provides. They're one of the providers that provide training. So we send them, and when they initially come on, and they get their training for that, which was 40 hours, and then they have ongoing training, and they have to take annual tests for their certification, okay, for EMD. Now, as mentioned earlier, could Brentwood do that? Sure, they could. The only problem that you run into when you provide EMD is if you're on the phone and you're providing medical instructions, pre-arrival instructions, it does take time. You can be on the phone with that person for 3, 4, 5 minutes. You could be tying that person up on the phone because the person's having a heart attack. And I've heard it many times. We're walking the person through how to do CPR, okay? If you're in a smaller dispatch center, you can't do that. Because if you have officers calling you and they have an emergency or you have 911 calls coming in, you can't put that person on hold while you're giving pre-arrival instructions and do something else.
May I continue?
Yes.
The other question, as I perceive it to be, is what I've got down here, is that you've got 4 of your 5 people covering single bands. A police north, a police south, fire north, fire 1 and fire 2 to work with. And the question as I perceive it is, then you only have really 1 dispatcher carrying those calls versus Brentwood having 1 or 2 dispatchers in our service center at the same time. Can you address, is it an apple and apple comparison?
Sure, we have 3 channels right now. What we're proposing is going to a 4th. That's where you get that secondary one, once we get additional personnel. So in our existing architecture, okay, Our minimum staffing's 4, but in majority of the time, we have 5. Okay, but I'm just telling you the minimum is because people have off, you're on training, and maybe their short day or so forth. So when we have 4 people there, 3 of them are on radios. If one of them's a call taker. However, if a call comes in and he's busy on a 911 call, okay, one of the other dispatchers will pick up the call. One of them on the radio will answer that call, okay? And that's true for all of the dispatch centers. Do that, because you're not going to let the 911 call keep on ringing. Now, admin lines, if they're calling in and we have a lot of admins calls coming in, those the person will answer quick and we'll put them on hold because we hold the admin calls. Those coming in on a 7-digit line.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll try to address a couple of the other items, and I'll just make this quick with Karen and Matt and Julie and Denise. I guess, you know, all I can say is I've tried. I think the accusations and innuendos and, you know, where Eagle Bank and, you know, and this and that, and I think over the last 3 years, I've given explanations for different things that have happened in the city as I understand them. And I guess no matter what I say, you're not going to believe me. So, you know, we went through a state audit. They didn't, you know, went through that process. We went through a federal investigation with a federal prosecutor, went through that investigation, and you know, and tried to, in my opinion, doing what we were told to do through those processes by the professionals that were helping us at the time. So. I guess I just to say is I've explained myself. You know, you're never going to believe me, I guess. So you can just keep making the innuendos and the rumors and the gossip and all that kind of stuff. I really don't care anymore. My goal is to do the best thing I can for the city of Brentwood and make the decisions on the information that I have with all of these issues. With respect to the code of conduct. You know, for a couple years, we've had aldermen talk about it. We've had residents requesting it. Nothing was ever done. So the big bad mayor decided to draft one himself, took my time and did it, and presented it to the board for their consideration. The way our system is supposed to work is the board takes that information, and they're the ones that decide whether they want to implement it or not. To be honest with you, if they don't want to, fine. I tried, you know, and we'll move on. But again, the innuendos and the accusations that I'm, you know, singling out or trying to do it, I drafted that on what I see are concerns that I have for the city of Brentwood and our staff. Take it or not. That's why I did it. At the end of the day, it's the Board of Aldermen to decide whether to use it or not. Okay, the reason for the one, again, this is the 3rd time I've explained it, is that the big concern about this, you know, not giving out information to the aldermen just isn't true or the real purpose of that. The issue is that we are a board and we're supposed to work together and try to run the city in a cooperative way. And if the information is so important, then Alderman has to have this information. Why isn't it important to all the aldermen? So why can't it be discussed at a committee level and determine whether that is something, yeah, we want the staff to do, or we all need that information so we can make that evaluation? You know, if you ask at a committee level, maybe some of the aldermen have the answer to the question, okay? Or maybe the staff has it. You know, or maybe they can get it for the next meeting. But why can't we work together to get that information? And if the committee says, well, we don't need to do that, or that isn't necessary because of this, then we can move on to the next thing. But it seems like, you know, we can't get to the next thing because we're always doing all these things over and over and over again. So you don't have to agree with me. It's just my opinion, okay? And ultimately, it's up to the Board of Aldermen to make that recommendation and to vote on it or not. Take it out. Make a motion. Take it out, you know, and eliminate it. And that's how the process works. I'm not perfect, but that's what I thought needed to be done. So it's up to the board to make that decision, not me. It's not about me, it's about what the board wants to do. It's about what our community wants to do. So,
Can I make a motion then
um,
that we move this to Ways and Means? Because
well,
policies
how
and
about when we get to it
procedures-
on the agenda?
Okay.
So, those are my comments, and as long as I'm here, and I will continue to do what I think is in the best interest of the city of Brentwood. And, we'll just continue to move forward. There's just some people, no matter what I say, I'm not going to convince, and I'm not going to say it anymore. So, okay. All right. So if we can move on to introduction.
Actually, I want to add something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Regarding the comments about the accounting, Matt, I'll just stress that. Since I've come on, Ways and Means, we've brought on an accounting firm to evaluate our internal controls. Additionally, we've switched accounting firms that evaluate our internal controls. We're also working on bringing on an audit committee made purely of residents without any attachment to the city, CPAs, former audit experience. I think as an alderman and oversight, our job is to make sure those things are being done. It's not really our job to make sure to get in the details and watch the job they're doing. We hire professionals, accredited professionals, and let them do their job. The reason I like having those professionals that are third party without attachment, they don't have biases. Unfortunately, we're human up here, emotions run. We're all probably guilty of having certain biases and what we want to look at and don't want to look at. I think having those accounting professionals come in to do it just removes that from the process.
Okay, thank you. If we can move on to introduction, reading, passage of bills. If I can have we're leaving 96 and 25 on hold, right? Okay. Can I have a motion for first and second readings of bills number 5827, 5828, 5829, and 5830?
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
We ask that bill number 5825 be removed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Removed?
From hold? No, off hold.
No.
Oh, removed complete? Oh, we have a substitute bill.
completely.
I'm sorry, yeah, we
The
can do
one
that.
after it replaces it.
Okay, so I have a motion to remove bill number 5825.
Correct.
We have a replacement.
So moved.
Your Honor.
We have first and
Second.
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. So, motion for first and second readings of bills number 5827, 28, 29, and 30.
Your Honor, if I may.
Yes.
The bill addressing the police department janitorial service.
Yes.
I would like that to go back to committee. I do have a problem with the contract that's been presented, and I think it does make a big difference as to which firm we should be choosing.
I'm prepared to answer those questions tonight because it has been taken to Public Safety Committee, and the chief presented it at that time. The three top vendors who responded to the bid, where we believed we had the lowest bidding, upon conducting the reference check, those entities who have them or have had them at some point in time recommended against us awarding the bid to them. Why would we recommend to the committee or to the board to select a vendor that we know already has problems? So those were some of the things that were considered when the police chief made the recommendation that A&B janitorial services be awarded a contract. And if we have issues with this contractor, this vendor, we can always address it. And within this agreement, it identifies how we would go about addressing it. We would first give them notice. If nothing was changed in terms of the deficiencies that we saw, we would have a right to terminate it. So unless we're saying that we, for some reason, don't agree with the reference that was checked, or that the findings that we heard from those who have hired these people in the past, I'm not certain why we would vote against the recommendation made by the department and the Public Safety Committee.
Give me a second, my phone. We have lots of fun things in front of us. Give me a second.
Should we discuss when we do the bill, or you don't want to do the first
No,
reading?
because I would really like to have the bill put back to the committee.
Oh.
Where I am looking at, Bola, in the ABM contract that you're asking us to support in this bill. Paragraph 2 has a 3-year commencement with 2 one-year options. Paragraph 3 has a dissatisfaction clause, which is the exact same reason why you're looking not to go with the low bidder for a dissatisfaction. So with that paragraph in there, wouldn't that negate any reason for the city to move away from the low bidder and go 2 bidders higher to get there? Because that clause allows you to terminate.
I'm not sure I understand what you just said.
Okay. In the termination clause number 3, in the contract, is a dissatisfaction. The intent is that in the reference checks, they were dissatisfied with the constant turnover of the employees.
Not in the contractor that was recommended, AMB Janitorial. That is not the case.
I have a dissatisfaction contract in this clause. I would assume that this clause is similar to the same clause that would be in our low bidders contract.
But why
Am I
would
wrong?
we knowingly go with the low bidder that we've already been told
Has problems.
has problems?
His problem is the constant turnover of the staff. It is not in the performance of getting the work done, it's the turnover of staff.
But if he doesn't have people there to do it,
They stated that their cleaning quality was only average.
Okay?
So it's 2 items here. The constant turnover of the staff and the fact that their cleaning quality was only average. Not just the one.
But in our bid request, did the city put in our bid request the same terms that are cited in ABM's arrangement? So if we had a dissatisfaction with the lowest bidder,
You know, when you select a vendor, then you go into negotiation on
Yep.
the content of your agreement. So why would we have gotten into that with any of the other low bidders when we weren't going to recommend and bring them
Okay.
forward?
Thank you. You've clarified that this contract is unique to ABM. It is not into the particulars that the city of Brentwood put into the request for quote.
Sure.
Okay. Now, I want to make sure, because I'm reading.
Why would we ever start negotiating an agreement before we've made a selection on who the low bidder is? It doesn't make sense to me.
All right. Would you take a look at clause number 7?
Could we have a vote to amend the agenda or not?
well, yeah, I mean, is there a timing issue with this?
No, there's no hurry.
Okay. Why don't we, maybe if, Andy, if you could maybe get together with Bull and go over your concerns? And,
Absolutely.
Okay, so if we have a motion to put this bill on hold?
So moved.
In second?
Second.
Okay. So now, if we can have we're shortening the list anyway. so
Yes, we are.
If we can,
Do we have to take a vote? We have
oh, I'm sorry, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, thank you.
There.
First reading of bill number
Opposed.
5827, 5828, and 5830. Thank you.
So moved, Your Honor.
And second. First and second reading only. All say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Okay, first reading of bill number 5827.
First reading Bill Number 5827 by title only, an ordinance approving site plan approval for an amended signage plan for the Joseph White Building located at 1750 South Brentwood Boulevard, providing for the enforcement of this ordinance and establishing the effective date of this ordinance.
Thank you. Synopsis, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Bill 5827 covers 1750 South Brentwood Boulevard, our Joseph H. White Building. Bill grants an ordinance for site plan approval for the signage plan covering that address, the Joseph H. White Building. Included within the submission is a signage plan for the Bank of Springfield and the tenant space they plan to occupy, as well as additional signage for the other tenant 3 spaces on the first floor of that building. Our Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended approval of the signage plan for an additional ground sign and awning coverage on the first floor for both the north and south sides of the building, as well as proposed removal of several of the window signs currently installed on the north tenant space, otherwise known as Refresh. That vote taken at Planning and Zoning was a approval of 8-0.
Okay. Any questions? Second read. Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor, and I don't know if Justin is still
here.
here. Your Honor, I actually had a chance to chat with Justin about this submission earlier today, and I visited the site after he and I spoke, and he was kind enough to walk me through some of the items. And one of the things that I mentioned to him, which I wanted to get his feedback again on now, was during the Planning and Zoning review, it didn't seem as though the topic of the backlighting of those awnings was part of their immense concern.
That is correct.
it was brought to their attention by the applicant that the awnings would be backlit, and that was about the extent of the discussion.
Your Honor, and I don't know if you've had a chance to review this application, but what potentially is going to end up at this site is 4 backlit signs in front of that building, which is perhaps a liberal amount of signage that would be supplemented by backlit awnings on a side of the building, for example, that's not actually over the tenant. So what we're going to have in this particular case is one of the few portions of our city with a backlit signage that would rival, for example, our Panera Bread Company. But I frankly don't compare a bank, which is, I think, our 13th or 12th bank in our city, no offense, Mayor.
No,
to a very popular attraction and amenity for our residents, which is the Panera Bread Company. I think it would stand out unfairly from that building. We already have a previous signage that was approved on the top of, I think, the adjacent building for Strayer University that turned out to be much larger and much more present than I think anybody envisioned originally. And I'm concerned. I'm concerned passing this with the backlit signage. If there's a way at all that we could consider allowing the awnings without the backlighting, I think that would be a lot more in keeping with the rest of our city. And additionally, the signs that will end up on the actual surface, the monument signage, once again, we will have 4. There is a precedent at that building with the lounge that's there, the karaoke bar. Yeah,
correct.
So there's a precedent for that type of signage there. But, Your Honor, I would like for the board to at least consider the deletion of the backlighting of those awnings. Thank you.
Personally, I actually like, I think actually it may enhance that area a little bit. My concern right there really is that that's very dark. And maybe by having the backlit awnings there along the Joseph H. White building is what we're talking about for the residents don't know. That may help to brighten that up a little bit. We do have pedestrian traffic there because of double Ds, and would light up that, hopefully maybe even light up that sidewalk a little bit so that there's some better visibility around there. The other thing is that there are, 4, or not 4, I don't know how many. There's a number of pretty large trees right there in front as well that, would screen some of that. I don't see the competition between the tenants of the Joseph H. White building and Panera Bread.
Oh, no.
So
my comment is that we allowed for that particular signage package on a planned development with a very large scale popular restaurant that's an amenity for our residents, whereas this is a non-continuous awning package where the awnings don't even go over the space that the tenant's going to occupy. It's a very unique arrangement. Maybe if the awnings went over every single part of the building, I could see the point that you're trying to make, but this is going to stand out, and I make a case that the other tenants in that building would say, well, what about us? Why doesn't the building owner allow all of us to take part in that package?
No. Justin.
Just one point of clarification. The awnings they will be respective, so the Refresh signage will be over the Refresh store, and the Bank of Springfield signage will be over their tenant space as well.
Now, the bank is actually further interior, though, is that correct?
It is an end cap. It is the furthest southern end cap.
And so where is the TV tenant that's in there right now going?
I'll let the applicant address that.
All right. Yeah, so once again, regardless of where the tenant's actually going to be, you've got tenant signage on either end that's going to be backlit, with the center is going to have nothing. And additionally, they're going to have a backlit monument sign on top of that. Mm-hmm. I'm concerned about it.
Okay. Well, the applicant is present. If you'd like to come forward, please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Mayor Kelly, members of the board, I'm Tom White of the White Company, and we're the owner of the building at 1750 Brentwood. just to, I don't know if you want all the background or just address some of the questions.
Whatever you think is best. I mean,
Okay. Well, basically, we signed a lease with the Bank of Springfield some time ago, and signage was important to them. So we talked to them about what signage we would allow versus what they wanted, and we had a little bit of a negotiation, and came to the city with that. And the city, at the P&Z level, indicated that they'd like to see a comprehensive plan put forward where we're not just asking for another sign here and another sign there, which I understand. I actually don't like some of the legacy signs that are sitting there along Brentwood, and I'd like to do something about that. So we thought we'd take that opportunity to go ahead and talk to the tenants there, and in particular address 3 of the concerns of P&Z. They, in particular, at the first submittal, did not like the color we presented. Let me just show you so you just have a little bit of background of where we've already come. We submitted a drawing that actually had awnings just for the bank and monument signage just for the bank. And like I said, they wanted us to come back with more of a comprehensive plan. Now, this was the first submittal, just to give you an idea. I personally don't like it that much either, but in the grand scheme of the lease, I was willing to give it a try. So then we came back, and the city said, well, no, we don't like the colors, the wording, or the lack of uniformity, and not only with the other signs, but the awnings on the second floor. So that's fine. I was in total agreement to go back to the drawing board, and what we've presented to you now and worked with the subcommittee on was addressing those 3 issues. The awnings that you see are over the specific tenant spaces only. The TV station that you referenced is gone. So the bank's going to be there. The backlit nature of it was meant to be sort of a compromise. They're not top lit. I don't know. I think Panera St. Louis Bread is lit from the top, lighting up the entire awning band. These will be backlit. If you look at your drawing, the only thing really coming through the lighting would be the lettering. Okay, not a billboard look or something like that. That's on the page where you see the black awnings and the Bank of Springfield logo and the wording on the what I would call the vertical portion of the awning. If Alderman Kramer, if you have any questions on that, that's
Got it.
basically the extent of the backlighting. The corner awnings would not be backlit. There would be no reason because that's an opaque awning. Unless we want to provide lighting for the general area per the mayor's comments. So, in coming back to the city and addressing those 3 issues, basically planning and zoning felt that was a good program. We mirrored the look of the bank awnings and what I'll call our yard sign on the south end with the same thing on the north end, and committed to planning and zoning that the 2 legacy signs in the middle that are not very good looking would come into conformity when those leases roll over. And that was another concern, was when would we do that. So we presented all of that, and that's the history of how we've gotten to this point.
So if I could, just to clarify, we're talking about then 2 backlit signs or 2 additional signs for the bank and to the monument sign, both sides. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that right?
Yeah, when you refer to the backlit, you're talking about the awnings?
Yes.
Now, the awnings are meant to be as much architectural as signage. The signage, once again, was minimized in order to give a little bit of deference to the look and the architectural feel. And yes, the name is up there, but it's meant to complement the second floor awnings and sort of provide a little bit of enhanced look on the ends of the building that are, I think it is an improvement. It's a little blasé without them and looks better with them.
Could the awnings go across the entire front of the building?
Well,
That'd be entirely expensive.
Well, you'd have to remove the trees.
That would be one. Actually, planning and zoning didn't want to have any awnings, and so this was a compromise to that meeting. It is from a practical standpoint, it's more difficult. So I would say no, with all those things considered.
Okay. And it is not a bank per se, it's more of a mortgage company, is that?
It really is more of a mortgage company. In fact, one of the points that by the way, I have the folks from Branca Springfield here tonight if anybody has a question for their operation. They're a mortgage company. They're not a bank in this location. And the name on the sign may in fact end up saying mortgage center instead of banking center. They wanted me to point that out, but that's what their operation is going to be. It's a mortgage production office.
Your Honor, do we have a precedent for allowing 4 signs for one operator?
Well, again, that's why they put this comprehensive plan together I guess from a planning standpoint. That's why they came back and wanted a plan for the entire site, opposed to piecemealing it.
That's right, because we're a planned development.
Planned development, right.
Here comes Justin.
Oh, go ahead.
In the Bank of Springfield, we'll have 3 signs, not 4. We'll have 2 on the awnings and then 1 freestanding ground sign.
Which will be 2-sided.
Correct, but correct.
You also have the south side of the building.
I'm speaking specifically to that tenant space, though. So you'll have the 2 awnings.
North and south.
No, for the Bank of Springfield. So if you look at
2 on the north end.
South and west.
On the south end.
Right. So they'll have the visibility on the 2 sides of their tenant space. And then they will have the freestanding ground sign, which will be 2-sided as well. So you'll be able to see it from the north or the south.
Okay, then the project
And it'll be under
description's
that
wrong, because
west
the
awning,
project description
the
says you're
sign.
going to be on the north and the south ends.
So the north ends are for a separate tenant space.
Right.
So that's for the refresh. And they just kind of wrap around.
Did we clarify that the backlighting, if I may interrupt you,
Sure.
Mr. Kramer, it's not a flashing backlit, it's a solid.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Tom?
And once again, on the backlighting, you're just going to see the lettering. It's not a glowing
hear you.
globe.
I truly respect the opportunity for an upgrade to the white building. It's a long-standing treasure for our city, and as I look back, it's been here longer than many other of the buildings, and this is perhaps a wonderful addition. It just seems to me as though we could satisfy the aesthetics without the backlighting. That's just my own personal opinion.
I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay. Did we have second reading?
No, we haven't.
Okay, second reading, please.
Second reading, Bill Number 5827 by title only, an ordinance approving site plan approval for an amended signage plan for the Joseph White Building located at 1750 South Brentwood Boulevard, providing for the enforcement of this ordinance and establishing the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay.
Your Honor, I move for adoption.
And second? Second. Motion is made by Alderman Robertson, second by Alderman Toohey. Alderman
Alderman
Sanders?
Kramer, can I ask you, are you just referring to the backlighting of the awnings? Or
Yes.
that the sign is lit?
But just the awnings.
Just the awnings, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Roll call.
Alderman Harper?
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Robertson?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
No.
Alderman Toohey?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bannister?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
Bill number 5827 is now ordinance number 4491.
Thank you. First reading of bill number 5828.
First reading, Bill Number 5828 by title only, an ordinance granting approval of a site development plan and conditional use permit for a nail salon business at property numbered 2814 South Brentwood Boulevard, which permits under the provisions of Chapter 25 of the Brentwood City Code the development of that site, providing the conditions of such development, and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay. And for, synopsis.
Yes, Your Honor, Bill 5828, that's for the conditional use permit, site plan approval, operating a nail salon located at 2814 South Brentwood Boulevard. This is our in-house case 14-01. Bill grants an ordinance for site plan and conditional use permit approval for a personal service facility, that for operation of a nail and skin care salon located at 2814 South Brentwood Boulevard. That's going to be on the east side of the street, not too far away from our Schnooks. Planning and Zoning Commission passed a motion to move the project forward with a recommendation of approval with conditions and a vote of 6-2. Conditions included the parking at 2814 South Brentwood Boulevard, the Jasmine Nail, Board of Alderman case 14-01 on February 3rd, 2014. The lot to be striped in compliance with city code requirements, trash service and receptacles be in compliance with code requirements, and the applicant continue to work with staff on incorporating landscaping treatments along Brentwood Boulevard and the right-of-way. Landscaping planners have been proposed along the right-of-way and are included in the submittal information presented by the applicant.
Okay, any questions? Second reading, please.
Second reading, Bill number 5828 by title only, an ordinance granting approval of a site development plan and conditional use permit for a nail salon business at property number 2814 South Brentwood Boulevard, which permits under the provisions of Chapter 25 of the Brentwood City Code the development of that site, providing the conditions of such development and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay.
Justin, can I ask you, what were the concerns of the two that voted no at the Planning and Zoning meeting?
The concerns were basically whether to move it to subcommittee or not. There were two individuals that thought it should go to subcommittee, particularly relating to the landscaping proposal that P&Z did not have before them that has subsequently been included in the Board of Alderman packet. So they had no objections to the use, at least that they voiced in the meeting. The primary objection was whether it should go through the subcommittee or not. In 6-2, they said move it forward as is.
Very little you can do from a landscape, right? From
Right. And I think there was some discussion about it. I think that, based off of what the applicant has submitted over, I think they're making a nice attempt to try to incorporate something that'll enhance the site from the public right-of-way, kind of break up some of the larger areas of the cement, as well as still preserving there's a bus stop right out front of it and not impeding on any of that area.
Good. Lay, I'm sorry.
The fact that, yes, they're dealing with a concrete slab and they got to fix it and the planners are there, how do we help maintain that the planners stay current and lively looking instead of neglected and faded?
Plastic?
It'll be
I don't know that we have anything in our code that requires that.
Right. Well, it's an exhibit that was presented to the Board of Aldermen. And so through that submittal in the ordinance, there's statements about, all of the statements and I forget, but any of the presentations made to the board are part of the approval of it. And that exhibit will go as part of the approval for it. The reality is, when it's 7 degrees outside, we're probably not going to see any great green landscaping out there. But, this is what they've proposed, so this is something that they think that they can maintain long term.
Would the city entertain artificial plants in the planters as satisfying the green space offset requirement? Because I honestly foresee that becoming an issue down the road. I just don't see how they're going to keep live plants in this area live. And I honestly would like to keep it a nice looking area.
Right.
And as an alderman, I would entertain accepting artificial plants in this area in order to try to keep a good appearance.
And I would say that's up to the board to decide. If you guys wanted to provide some guidance through the discussion here, I think that would be suitable for giving staff direction in the administration of the ordinance and the conditional use permit.
I just think it would be reasonable to expect that this type of landscaping, because it is all concrete, would just be a seasonal type of landscaping and during, like you said, 7-degree weather.
And we don't want palm trees out in the
I just
middle
don't
of
think
December.
that plastic flowers is appealing, so that's just my thought. Yeah, exactly. This is my thought.
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Saunders, I'm sorry.
So is this what they're committed to as far as their landscaping? Mine has 2 6-foot trees, an 8-foot planter, a fountain, 5-foot planter.
That is correct.
So
that is what they are proposing. This is what they have proposed to address the comments out of P&Z to continue working to incorporate some sort of landscaping into that.
But is that part of the site plan? Are these in the site plan?
This exhibit will get approved as part of the package that they've prepared and submitted to the board for approval.
Right.
So they're committed to the 2 6-foot trees and the 8-foot planter?
That is correct.
And the fountain and the 5-foot planter?
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
Justin. Second reading?
Second reading, Bill Number 5828 by title only, an ordinance granting approval of a site development plan and conditional use permit for a nail salon business of property number 2814 South Brentwood Boulevard, which permits under the provisions of Chapter 25 of the Brentwood City Code the development of that site, providing the conditions of such development and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Your Honor.
Yes, Sinop.
I just wanted to include a comment that certainly appreciate the addition of another water feature for our city.
Of course. Now we get ice featured now.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve Bill number 5828 as submitted, Your Honor.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Your Honor.
We had a first and a second. Roll call, please.
Alderman Harper?
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Robertson?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Tui?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bannister?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
Bill number 5828 is now ordinance number 4492.
Okay, thank you. First reading, bill number 5830, please.
First reading, Bill Number 5830 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute a planning services agreement with Planning Design Studio LLC and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay, synopsis, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Our synopsis for this bill, 5830, for the Brentwood Park System Master Plan, Phase 2. Bill covers an ordinance authorizing the mayor of our city of Brentwood and/or our city administrator to execute an agreement with Planning Design Studio, PDS, for Phase 2 of the Brentwood Parks System Master Plan. Last year, the Parks and Recreation Department completed the initial assessment of the Brentwood Park System, and that was the master plan. The assessment identified gaps or needs in the community's park system and proposed initial solutions. Phase 2 should consist on further data collection, the stakeholder interviews, analysis of park sites, plan recommendations, design concepts, and implementation strategies. Planning Design Studio, PDS, submitted a fee of $35,000, which was included in the budget that was approved by our Board of Aldermen December 2nd, 2013. There's a memo to that effect, and the item was presented to our Public Works Committee. They have reviewed and recommended this be presented to the Board of Aldermen for their positive consideration.
Okay, any questions? Okay, second reading, please.
Second reading, Bill Number 5830 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Brentwood, Missouri authorizing the mayor and/or city administrator to enter into and execute a planning services agreement with Planning Design Studio LLC and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
Okay, any questions? Motion, please.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have first and second. Roll call, please.
Alderman Harper?
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes.
Alderman Robertson?
Yes.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Tui?
Yes.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bannister?
Yes.
Alderwoman Saunders?
Yes.
Bill number 5830 is now ordinance number 4493.
Okay. Next item, resolution 1002. And again, this, I'm sorry.
Wait, you don't want to.
Yeah, this is a code of conduct, and the board can do with it at their pleasure. So, Lee?
Well, I just want to say this. We've had a lot of people comment tonight about a lot of things. They say sometimes I haven't read what I'm supposed to read. I haven't done my job very well. I need to take more time. Well, that's what the board, I'm one of the boards, so I assume they meant me too. I think it'd be a good idea to put it on hold. Give everybody another chance. People who don't like what's here got a chance again to go back and talk with Bo, make comments, make suggestions. You can read it again, think it over, and give her some. There's no deadline on this.
No.
Okay. So my suggestion would be put it on hold, and everyone can think about it again. And they say, why think again? I don't know if it's going to do any good or not, but why rush into something when we got so much diversity in opinion, so broadly apart from each other, and it won't be successful for anybody. So I would just like to put it on hold for another.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Can I offer?
Well, we got a motion. We need a second. Second? Okay. Comments?
Okay.
Go ahead.
And I would like to propose that putting on a hold is fine with me, but I would like to propose that it goes to Ways and Means. That's where policies and procedures usually start. We did the employee manual there at Ways and Means. And the only reason I say that is because, like, I have Ellisville's, and we received Rock Hill and Core, and in our packet that we receive when we come, we've got the Code of Ethics from Town of Wendell, and there's some really good pieces in some of the others so that we could make it even more comprehensive. But that work is hard to do among a full board, and that's why we usually send it to committee. It's a smaller group, and we can kind of...
I would ask, Chairman, that's you, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I love to put it on you. Would you want it to come there, or would you not rather not come there?
Is it okay to respond, Your Honor?
Sure.
It's in the middle of Alderwoman Saunders' comment. Is that okay?
no,
I'm
that's
sorry.
fine. I mean, I
Okay.
just think that, I mean, I don't understand why we would bypass that step
I
regardless.
just wanted to see what he said.
Yes, Your Honor, and Alderman Nguyen, that's totally fine. Wherever it goes, and I'm happy for it to come to our committee and have a discussion. I do agree with both Alderwoman Saunders' comments and Alderman Nguyen's comments. It is a weighty topic for us to discuss at the board level or at the committee level, and it should ideally take some time. For the board's review, I did put together a proposed list of constructive suggestions for maybe an alternate route to get to where maybe we'd all like to get, and everybody should have a copy of that. But if the esteemed Alderman Nguyen would like to send it to the committee, I'm ready to have it.
I haven't been esteemed for a long time.
Do we amend?
We have a motion
I would
first
be glad to send it to Ways and Means.
and second, then
So is that
revise
to
the
amend
original
it?
motion.
Okay, second.
Okay, motion is made to put it on hold and send it to Ways and Means. All in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a
Oh,
question. Overall, I'm in agreement with most of it except for, I'm in agreement with going back to committee, but with the policy A, Rule 1. But I did have a question about policy C, Rule 2, about Rule 2, it's easy to say, in regards to closed session and information being shared out of closed session. Currently, what's the board's recourse when information is shared outside of closed session?
I would actually have to ask the city attorney that. I don't know.
Currently, there's very low recourse in terms of discipline.
Because I don't think we really have anything in place.
We talked about it at Ways and Means, but it was almost impossible to find, an agreement or what to do, just because so much of it was subjective. You know, someone makes a comment that came maybe out of an executive session, but how do you really know who told them? It's a lot of speculating, and we found it to be dangerous to try and make the board determine who must have leaked that.
But when you have an email that has closed session information that was shared, what's the recourse at that point?
Actually, in response to both your questions, it's a liability issue for the city. There's no discipline, it's a liability, and that exposes the city to possible legal action when that information is leaked.
Okay.
So ideally, a guideline or a policy group that we would all agree upon would
at least put people on notice.
Preclude that.
Right.
Okay.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Okay. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next item, counts against the city.
Your Honor, we have a warrant list before you in the amount of $288,369.48, dated for today's meeting. I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of the motion for this warrant list.
Any questions, Alderwoman Saunders?
Just the one question, since we were discussing training and that for the dispatchers. That City of Glendale, I know we do cooperative fire training. Would the dispatchers be part of that, Chief Jury, at all, or is that?
No, that's strictly fire training.
Strictly fire?
Only applies to the fire.
Okay. And where does Glendale, do they have their own dispatching, or?
Glendale does have their own dispatch.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Susan?
We have a motion.
Yes. Did we have a second? No, we need a second.
I'll second to authorize the city to pay the bills.
There you go. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Next item, under the mayor's report, I do have a number of items First, I'd like a motion to appoint Dan Fitzgerald, the Assistant Chief, as the Acting Chief through the, while we start a search process for the new chief.
You need a motion?
Yes,
I'll make
please.
that motion.
And second?
Second.
Okay. Alderman Lay.
Clarification, if I can. The information that was shared with me this afternoon is that the chief is still on duty till the 1st of April.
He's taking his sick and vacation days to that point. So,
But that's, so yes, he's on the payroll, but no, he's not on the street working the
Right.
department.
right, but he'd
Thank
make
you.
himself available to help. So we just want to have somebody here for the day-to-day operation. So,
Okay.
okay. Is everybody okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Dan, congratulations. Next item, I have actually, I'd like to instruct, unless there's going to be some objections from the board, staff to start the process for issuing the bonds for the recreational work that we agreed to do at the end of last year. This is in the budget, and that was probably about a 2-month process just to get the bonds issued. In the meantime, we could start the bidding for the construction managers at the same time, or not construction managers, but what would we call that?
Project manager.
Project manager, okay. And so that we can hopefully get some of those deferred maintenance items started before the end of the year, so. Alderman Lay?
You're asking for the issuance of bonds, or are you offering for the competition for who would be doing the bonds, the COP?
Well,
I don't know that we've.
Neither.
well, we have bond counsel that will do that work for us. I mean, unless you want us to put that out to bid.
It would be the RFP for the work
Right.
that would actually get done with the renovation, that we
Right.
would issue an RFP for.
Okay, so you're issuing an RFP to the scope of work that the engineers gave us back and said, these are the things that we've all agreed to fix, to work with, and you're going out with an RFP for working out.
All those items.
Okay.
So they would help us with the, putting those items out to bid and doing those things.
Okay.
Right, and then overseeing the work.
I'm not clear that we have an approved scope of work for anything on the
I don't
building.
think we do either.
Well, we
Did we vote on
agreed
that?
to, we agreed to a list of items that we were going to do in December or November.
Last year.
It's in the budget, the estimated cost, so.
I don't know about that.
I think there were some aldermen that were not at some of those meetings when those discussions were had, but we can surely make that information available to the board again.
Right.
You were not at the
Yes.
meeting.
No, I wasn't there.
So, I mean, I'll be quite frank, I mean, this is kind of the circle we've been in for the last 5 years, and I think we really need to do something here.
I just want to make sure we vote on it, that's all.
Well, no, we did. I mean, it's in the budget. We estimated the cost. We had the report done. The one discussion was that GBA had, GBA, right? Yeah, had said that, they would be the project manager for us. The discussion was made that if we,
Go out to bid.
could we put that out to bid? And absolutely we can. So I would think they will come in probably one of the top ones because of all the pre-work that they've done. But we agreed to.
Did we vote
the
on the
scope.
dollar amount, though?
Yeah, it's about $3.5 million up to, and.
When was
yeah.
that vote taken?
It was, well, if you wanted to be.
It was
Huh?
in the budget, for sure.
Right, and then this is what we said, it's in the budget, Ways and Means.
And we
Tom,
voted.
you
I
know,
understand, but we didn't vote on the expenditure. We
Huh?
didn't vote on the expenditure.
We're not, well, we haven't voted on the expenditure because we haven't spent the money yet. We voted on what the scope of work was going to be and the amount of the bonds that we would need to do that. But now we need to start that process to implement it after the first of the year. So.
And Tom, you're kicking in 25%. No.
I think the concern.
That's his membership fee. So, okay. So-
I think maybe the concern, Alderman Kramer, is once you got the actual dollar amount, you then began questioning whether that much money should be put into that building. Like, will we? I think that was the question you had.
Okay, here we are back to that circle again.
Okay,
We've
no, I
been-
agree. I've moved
So,
on.
I mean,
Okay.
this is what we've been.
I just was just trying to clarify maybe what he was.
I do not agree.
Matt, how many years ago were you on the committee?
Oh, wow. I think I only had 2 kids at the time. Now I've got 3 graduated from college.
There you go, so, all right. Okay, so anyway, staff is going to start working on that, and to get those bonds issued. A couple other items. I'd like to make.
Your Honor, if I may
Yes.
interrupt, may we request, if it would be convenient, Bola, can we get the records of what we agreed to with the engineering group as to where those cost breakouts were going to be?
We can mail those out, or email them out.
If you'd put it back in the weekly packet,
Yep.
I think that would help alleviate some of the confusion.
Okay, good idea.
Thank you.
I'd like to nominate Patrick Tui to serve as the aldermanic representative on the Police and Firemen's Pension Board. If I get a nomination for that.
I'll nominate him. Yeah, I will too.
Okay, any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. 2 other quick items. One, the TV station is back on channel, so people can watch these meetings again on TV. And then the last item, which I think is actually really a good idea. It wasn't mine, but was suggested to me by a friend, and really makes a lot of sense. It's something that the city's been looking to do for a long time. And the idea is where we've just cleared the new buildings down at Norm West Park, which is finally getting leveled. I'd like the board or the staff to start working on putting some prices together to make that area into a dog park. We have parking down there. It's not real close to any of the residential homes. Obviously, we'll have to make our procedure. I didn't mean that. I just. It will not be there. We'll have time limits, but it really is an ideal location for that. I think because of the parking and those kinds of things. So, Alderman Leahy.
I believe that under the flood declarations, that putting up the chain link fencing, because we went through the same problem with the property down at Russell. They wouldn't allow us to put the chain link fencing up for the dog park.
Yeah, if we can't do it, then we can't do it. But I think we evaluated that and went through that when we talked to the YMCA down there too, and that issue was brought up, and they said again, depending the type of fence that we would use, it would be allowed. So we would just have to verify that. But I mean, if that's again, that's something that the staff can find out. But as they start the process.
Now, because I feel like you're jumping a little bit. We just approved the second phase of the 5-year master plan.
Right.
Doesn't this type of activity fall under what we've hired the consultants in the group to put together for the master plan to put in place? And here we're already jumping into an action without going through the groups that we've tasked with the assignments.
Well, I guess, to a certain extent, the master plan is a process, evaluating our needs for the future, and is really a tool to help us acquire future grants through the Parks grant. This is something that almost every one of our surveys that we've done is something that I know I get requests for all the time from residents to add. It would just be another enhancement that would go into that study as they move forward. It's not going to happen tomorrow.
No.
Obviously, the staff would have to research some things to make sure it's able to be done. But it would just be another thing added to that study of whether it's in the process or moving forward at that point, or can't be done there. So, again, I just think it's a good location. I wouldn't want to have the city do a bunch of work down there and then have to change it in order to add the dog park. Right now, while they're leveling it and clearing the area, be a time to kind of stake it out and see if it would work.
We had earlier also discussed the fact that the parking for that soccer field down there, that the parking that's currently there is not on city property, and that we were looking at taking some of the new land that was donated to us and making that parking situation hopefully get resolved.
Well, I think actually we own all the parking now, whereas before we didn't. Those spaces, some of those spaces adjoining our parking lot before belonged to the apartments, but that's part of the property that's been turned over to us now. So I think that the parking's actually doubled in size.
I'm talking, yeah, but the parking lot that you currently have on the south end of the soccer field, is on owned by other
Right.
people
Right.
to work with. So if we have an opportunity to correct that problem, because they're not really on on our property.
Okay, I mean, again, that's something we can look at, but I think they gave us the ability to use those spaces, so. right.
Yes, because of that temporary road or whatever they've got in connecting Mary Avenue to Brazil.
Right, so, okay. So that's all I have under my report. Public safety,
No report.
Public Works,
No report, Your Honor.
Director, nothing. Ways and Means,
Yes, Your Honor, our next meeting comes up third Wednesday of this month at 5:30 here in Chambers.
great. City Attorney,
No report, Your Honor.
thank you. City Clerk Administrator,
No report, Your Honor.
let me see, what else can I delay to keep you here, George? You should have said something before the meeting.
My report's gonna take a half hour, 45
I apologize. If I was paying attention, I should have. moved
Don't
you up
worry,
on the
Mayor.
agenda.
We have before us tonight a request from St. Mary Magdalene for a temporary liquor license for the holidays season, the fish fry, March the 7th, March 14th, the 21st, the 28th, April the 4th, and April the 11th, and the 18th for Good Friday.
Okay.
And also, they're asking for April the 26th, which will be their trivia night, and then on May 16th and 17th, the parish picnic.
Any question?
Motion to approve the liquor license for all the dates, Your Honor.
And
Second.
All in favor? Oh, you need a roll call, Lee?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Library, anything further?
No. No.
Thank you.
No report.
Municipal League, again, just if anybody can attend, the Missouri Municipal League Legislative Day is next Tuesday and Wednesday in Jeff City. And I think that's about all I have on Municipal League updates. Historical Society, anything?
No.
We will have an executive session for a legal matter that we will meet at. Do you want to do any unfinished or new business now, or come back to that?
Do it now.
Okay. Any unfinished business? Alderwoman Saunders?
First of all, I wanted to ask, now that the ECDC contract's out, is there anything in closed session that we can't talk about in public? I mean, can we now speak about that?
I don't think there's, I mean, it's within your discretion. I don't think there's anything that can't be
Okay, I
discussed.
mean, I don't want to, do you know what I mean?
I understand what you're
We
saying.
had the contract in there, and we talked about items, but I don't see any of it being a risk for the city. So I just want to make sure I have permission to talk about things I learned in closed session.
My only is, yeah, I mean, really the thing, though, you want to be careful, and I don't even know that it applies in this, but, you know, any specific employee or those kinds of things is the things you wouldn't. But really, with respect to the contract, that was the big thing. So.
And it's
yeah.
okay. Okay, and then also, you know, I agree with Alderman Toohey about the internal controls and the audit committee. I'm, you know, glad that, you know, that was a suggestion, too, of the auditors, and we listened and we used the management letters. But Mayor, you said, too, that, you know, when you were answering and you said you talk about it and you, as best you understand it, there's times where I'll ask for a document or an invoice, and it's just my way of understanding something. And that's just what, you know, I wanted to say, is that you've understood it in whatever manner of learning that you use, but sometimes I just want a document just so that I can, you know, understand the situation. I may just want more detail. And one of the examples, too, though, when Alderman Toohey said not to get into the details, but I did ask to see like an invoice because I thought it seemed high for the work requested. That's an important internal control that the Board of Aldermen provides. And so it just means that I want to see it. I mean, if the folder of invoices could be brought to me, you know, there's registers that I want to see. They're existing documents, so there's no difficulty in just having them. I'll be happy to look at them in the conference room. I don't need to take them with me, but it just satisfies my questions. And I think that adds another level of control.
Okay. Gina, do we keep like a, we used to have a warrantless book. Do we keep, do you print off something like that that just like is pretty much all of the checks that we do?
The warrant list is anything over $2,000, so those would be part of your records as far as the board. And then in addition to that, we create a check report that would have everything, every check that's issued by the city. So
Well-
that's a record that we keep.
And what we used to do is, we used to just call it the warrant book, but I know it was different numbers, but it was all the checks that we would have. And we used to just keep that on a regular basis, that copy in the conference room, and Board of Aldermen could come in and review it. The chairs of the committees used to have to check off on all of the expenses on a weekly basis. You know, it got to be too cumbersome. People couldn't make it up here and it got delayed. But do you think that would be a problem to have that register book available that aldermen could look at it whenever they want, that kind of thing? Is that?
I don't think it's a problem, and it's definitely something that we can easily provide. The issue you have is when there are question after question after question that we may have to, set aside what we're working on to answer a question about a travel reimbursement for $35. Those are the kinds of things where it becomes time consuming when you have 8 or 9 of you,
Right.
all having different questions about different invoices. So, if that's the direction of the board, absolutely, we'll do
Again,
it. But
that's, I don't want to.
that's the reason why it's not typically done that way.
Okay.
That's why you keep
Makes
it
sense.
at a higher level.
Okay. All right. Alderman Saunders.
I just want to clarify, and I don't think that that's a good idea, and I really don't want to see the check registers. It is an invoice. But in the last 3 months, maybe longer, I only asked to see one invoice. And if I just wanted to see the work that was done, and if it's satisfied, and then if, there was more work done, I can ask to see it. But it was one invoice. I'm not sure if the other aldermen are all asking for plenty more invoices, but I wouldn't want to see every single transaction either. That would be ridiculous. It was just this seemed a little high to me, and my question was answered, and I looked at it, and Bola provided me the information. And the same, sometimes I want to see registers. That's just because I'm an accountant. I look at them and just, see that things are okay, and it just provides another level of control. And that's it.
That's fine. Again, it's just a suggestion. Okay. Any new business?
Mr. Kramer.
Alderman Kramer.
Yes, Your Honor, you touched on it during the mayor's report. I wondered if you'd be so kind as to briefly highlight the procedure we followed last time when we selected a new chief.
Well, last time we went through the Missouri Police Chiefs Association, but I think, and they handled almost everything. I think we actually had to pay for that, or I'm sure we paid for it, yeah. I think with our current staff, with our HR director, and what I would suggest is that we probably talk to some of our neighboring communities, set up a peer board.
I have been involved
Right.
in the recruitment process of a police chief, so
right.
I'm experienced in that.
So we'll put a process together and let the board know what that is. Our
What that
staff
is,
will. right?
absolutely.
So, okay. Alderman Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Ward 3 meeting for the month of February will be Tuesday night, the 25th, 7 o'clock up here at the council room. All are invited. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Saunders.
And then my Ward 1 meeting is next Tuesday, February 11th at 6:30 PM up here in this room.
Great. If anybody would like to address the board, please come forward and give us your name and address.
Jim Pozo, 2211 St. Clair. I guess one of the comments was let professionals run the city, and I guess I've lived in the city of Brentwood 29 years, and I didn't expect the state audit to come out poor, but, so I think the board needs to help the professionals, or assist, or watch the professionals run the city. Okay, the warrant list, I guess when we were talking about Jambowitz let's see, I looked through the warrant list for December 2009. There was nothing going to Glenn and Company. In 2010, December, we paid them $6,000. And in 2011 of December, we paid them like $19,000. Let's see, Sunshine Law, I believe there is in the state statutes, you can take a person to civil court over the Sunshine Law violations. And the penalty, I think, is the court costs, and I believe could be a $5,000 fine to the person violating it. So I believe that's already covered in the state statutes. Thank you.
Matt Saunders. Alderman Leahy, send your wife plastic flowers for Valentine's and let us know how that goes.
I just took her to Disney World.
Thank you for pushing the rink to get updated. I just want to comment, if there's a great choice for a person in charge of our police department, there's no bigger fixture in the city of Brentwood than Officer Fitzgerald. He's a great choice. Thank you for making that appointment. He's wonderful up at the parish. You see him all over town, and I hope he ends up being the permanent replacement. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, do I have a, oh, no. One more.
A couple more.
Are we supposed to take three?
I just have a question, Cindy. You made a motion, I think, last week about doing an investigation on the Jamborettes issue. I was wondering where that sits with the board.
Well, I think we asked for copies of the Missouri Ethics.
Right.
Yes.
And did you get that?
Yes, I did.
And
We didn't.
did you discuss it, or?
I believe the information was in the weekly administrator's report.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But
To work on
Cindy
that.
suggested that maybe we do an investigation in order to clear our police and our fire. Jamborettes implicated them in the Missouri Ethics Report. Or he said people of substance, but then in 40 South and some of the others, he said there were police and fire that were involved. How do you feel about that? Would you like to
Now
have
that
an
you've
investigation?
reviewed.
I'll be happy to have that conversation with you one-on-one, but not here.
Okay, I
at the-
thought the board was going to decide between the last meeting
Well,
and
let's
this
not have it.
meeting.
So, you got your question, you can.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Good.
Denise Subbing, and I'd be interested in that conversation too. I'm
You're more
interested
than
in who
welcome to
those
attend.
people of substance are, and I was curious as to the sudden exit of Chief Bennett. I was curious as to whether that was planned. You started to say it was a resignation and then a retirement, and I was curious as to whether this was a planned. It doesn't seem like it was. If you didn't have a plan for his replacement right away, but I was curious as to what would have prompted that, if it had something to do with the dispatcher's discussion or if it was in fact something to do with the investigation. I hope it's not. But I'm curious, and that's why I'd like to be part of that, because I would like to know. I think it's imperative that we know that the people that are harassing other citizens be made known too. So thank you. And one other thing I would like to say, I do appreciate all the conversations that you had about the signage. You all had asked some really good questions. I wish you would have asked that many questions about the dog, the watering bowl by my house. That's still an issue. And now that it's passed, I understand, since the conditional permit has been approved, that it's almost impossible to get that revoked. And I'd like to have some further discussions about what do residents do to get the board assistance when you're having to live the nightmare of maybe people not doing their due diligence. Thank you.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Not too often do we have employees who stay with an organization for as long as Chief Bennett has. And I have some prepared statement that I would like us to release on the city website, if the board would permit. Actually, I believe that the city owes Chief Bennett gratitude for serving the city for 37 years, beginning in January 1977. He earned a promotion to sergeant in June of 1983, to lieutenant in January of 2003, and was appointed assistant chief in 2004. During that time, Steve attended the FBI National Academy and graduated with the class of number 222. In April 2009, he was appointed chief of police for the city of Brentwood. We thank him for his hard work and dedication to our city and wish him the best of luck. It is his decision if he chooses to retire. I don't think that anyone should try to disparage him in the manner that Denise Sebing just did.
I think the only question there is did he give 2 weeks' notice? Did we, I think that's the abruptness.
If his resignation date is effective April 1st, 2014, that is 60 days.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so I didn't know that you can just terminate
He's
and
using
take
his vacation.
He's using his vacation.
And, you know, again, I mean, it's Steve's decision. I think I am not going to speak for him, but I think a couple of things that were important is that his wife retired last year, and I know they have a new grandbaby, and they're going to spend some great times together, and so I think that was a big part of his decision. And again, like Bola said, we owe him great thanks for his dedication and service to the Brentwood community. And, you know, so.
Your Honor?
Yes.
You may share my hopefulness that perhaps when he is available, he could perhaps come and we could offer him a recognition.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So,
Your Honor?
he won't get off that easy. Yes.
I'll make the motion to authorize the posting to the website.
Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely. Yeah.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
And I just want to clarify, I think Chief Bennett is great. I think that's what the residents were, just the abruptness, but the vacation counts for that, so I didn't realize. Thank you.
Can I make a comment too? I was accused of disparaging him. I wasn't.
No, I think, no.
Tell him.
Yeah.
I want clarification. I was not disparaging him. I was just asking because we heard it through the South 40 that he resigned, and I was just curious as to what may have prompted that. You know, all you had to say was it was personal decision or anything like that, but it was not a disparagement. So Bola,
But you're in
please don't-
HR, so you know we can't talk about that
I am in HR, and I
publicly.
just asked the question, Bola. I did not make any accusations, so please don't put words in my mouth.
Sure.
Okay.
Your Honor,
And I'll make
motion-
I got to make one comment, because I think that's the kind of, okay, maybe it wasn't it's the innuendos that continues to fuel the distrust and those kinds of things in our community. You may not have meant it that way, but I think that's the way I took it in hearing it. And so that's why we need to be very careful what we say. And, you know, so that's that. So can I have a motion to go in executive session?
So moved, Your Honor.
And second?
Does he need to say what?
Roll call, please.
For a legal matter.
For legal matters, yes.
Roll call.
Alderman Harper?
Yes.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yeah.
Alderman Robertson?
Yep.
Alderman Kramer? Alderman Kramer?
Alderman Kramer.
Alderman Kramer?
Yes.
Alderman Tui?
No.
Alderman Leahy?
Yes.
Alderman Manister?
Yes.
Alderman Simon?
Yes.
We can make it short.